Part 42. Fringe Artists in the Entertainment Industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 426. Chapter 412-410. Beautiful Cheongsam. The weather in early summer was already slightly hot. Chen Lian, wearing only a thin shirt, sat at the table and looked at the plan handed over by Cheng Shifen and Li Shui. There are many problems involved in making a very large talent show, and I don't know how long it will take just to prepare. Chen Lian doesn't want to do it now. He was beaten so hard by Li Fujian that he talked about doing a talent show. But now Li Fujian thinks this idea is very good, and if he wants to continue doing it, Chen Lian can only bite the bullet and do it. There is nothing wrong with the program plan written by Cheng Shifen and Li Shui. The difficult part is how to get through the TV stations and entertainment companies in various countries. Chen Lian was not worried about South Korea and the mainland. Japan needed to find someone to cooperate. The first thought that came to Chen Lian's mind was to find Ito Muragi. This old boy has a wide network of contacts in Japan. When Chen Lian was doing performance art in Tokyo 2 years ago, he helped get Fuji TV connected. Let's go back to Japan and meet Ito Muragi, but this old boy will definitely find a way to participate in this year's Tokyo art exhibition. If the guarantee is not enough, there will be an investment, and the Tokyo art exhibition has not been having a good time in the past 2 years. Chen Lian thought for a while and then closed the plan. If he wanted to create a super talent show in Asia, he must have enough chips. This kind of thing is like a snowball. The initial snowball is big enough to attract more people. Cheng Shifen's suggestion to Chen Lian in the planning book is good. First, unite the mainland, Hong Kong, and South Korea to do it, and then bring Japan on board. In this way, the regions with the greatest influence on entertainment culture in Asia are all on board. The powerful ones are all on board, and naturally other regions and countries cannot escape. Now that a line has been sorted out, Chen Lian also knows where to go. The beginning is always difficult. After thinking about it for a while, Chen Lian felt that the format of the program should be innovated. It was okay to follow the framework of Miss Universe, but the format of the program must be different. Just when Chen Lian began to recall the variety shows he had watched, Li Shui suddenly knocked on the door and came in. "Teacher Chen, we are leaving for the airport now. The flight will leave for Paris at 5 o'clock in the afternoon." Chen Lian glanced at the time. It was already past 3 o'clock, and time passed quite quickly. "You go prepare the car first, and I'll call Fujian." Li Shui nodded, turned around and went out. Chen Lian called Li Fujian, exchanged a few simple words of farewell, and then left for the airport. "I will meet Li Fujian in Tokyo next month, but there is no greasy parting scene." On the plane flying to Paris, Chen Lian took a notebook and wrote down a few points he thought about the talent show and handed it to Li Shui. "Plan a new one based on this idea. This kind of super large-scale talent show has many links and a long cycle, so as to maximize the commercial value." After Chen Lian made a few remarks, he looked at the thoughtful Li Shui and said, "Being in the entertainment industry is not just about cultivating a few stars or filming a few TV series. We must comprehensively consider how to expand influence, explore commercial value, guide public opinion, cultural dissemination, IP development, etc." Li Shui listened to Chen Lian's words and wrote them down one by one, feeling that she still had a lot to learn. Chen Lian is in good spirits now, so he simply gives Li Shui lessons. She can be regarded as a sister-in-law after all. If she trains her well, she may become his right-hand assistant in the future, and she may be the next Li Fujian. Li Shui looked at Chen Lian, who was talking eloquently, listening attentively, with admiration in her eyes. It wasn't until more than an hour later, when Chen Lian covered himself with a blanket and prepared to sleep, that she withdrew her gaze with lingering interest. This was the first time that Chen Lian had told her so much, and it was also the first time that he had taught her something in person. Li Shui felt quite sweet in her heart. Well, it was more bitter. If it weren't for Li Bingbing's kind help, Li Shui wouldn't be so sad. Why should it be his sister? Li Shui can accept herself as one of Chen Lian's lovers, but she cannot accept that she and her sister can become his lovers together. This is simply against ethics. Li Shui sighed quietly, feeling that life was really boring, and she was both grateful and resentful to Li Bingbing in her heart. He was grateful to her for taking the initiative to be Chen Lian's lover for him, but he also blamed her for completely losing the opportunity. Li Shui looked at the sleeping side face and couldn't help but raise her hand to touch his face. She would never have the chance to get closer to him in the future. But she stopped when she reached halfway. She was no longer qualified to touch Chen Lian. Li Shui turned away and suppressed the annoyance in her heart, no longer looking at Chen Lian, and did not notice Chen Lian's eyelids moving slightly. More than 10 hours later, Chen Lian appeared in Cannes. Because of the tight time, he did not stop in Paris. The temperature in Cannes at the end of May is very pleasant. The light sea breeze blows, and the cool summer atmosphere immediately comes. Chen Lian stretched his palm out of the car window and felt it for a while before he took it back without feeling satisfied. The speed of the car was too slow, and it had only reached C. Chen Lian turned to look at Li Shui and said, "You don't have to follow me these 2 days. You can go out and play by yourself. Just treat it as a vacation." On vacation, Li Shui was stunned for a moment. She had never taken a vacation after following Chen Lian for so long. Chen Lian hummed and said, "Play around and play around. If you find something you like, buy it. I will reimburse you and treat it as a gift to you." "Mr. Chen, Li Shui was inexplicably surprised, but she also wondered if Chen Lian was treating him like this because of his sister Li Bingbing. Chen Lian laughed and said, "Don't think too much, it's just a reward for you, it has nothing to do with anyone else." Li Shui pursed her lips and gave a soft hum, a small secret of joy flashed in her eyes, but then she felt condemned by her conscience and could no longer think any more. "He and your sister are getting along." After arriving at the hotel, Chen Lian went upstairs to find Gong Li. After Li Shui arranged a room for himself, he sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the scenery outside and couldn't help but sigh. Suddenly he was free and he really didn't know what to do. Li Shui felt that he was used to hanging around Chen Lian every day, but he suddenly said he didn't need her to follow him and still felt empty. Li Shui sat in the room for a while and prepared to go out for a walk, but when she opened her suitcase, she found that she didn't even have any casual clothes. It seemed that she hadn't bought regular clothes for a long time since she became Chen Lian's assistant. Li Shui laughed to herself and went out wearing a white shirt and professional skirt. "Now that you're on vacation, let's relax and stop yourself from overthinking." Li Shui went to buy clothes, drank coffee alone at a beachside cafe, watched the sunset for a while, and wandered alone on the streets of Cannes in the evening. When passing by a jewelry store, she stopped and hesitated before walking in. On the other side, Chen Lian and Gong Li were having dinner at the moment, along with director Cheng and Yu Liwei, both of whom were old friends. Yu Liwei was still working as a photographer for Jiazhang 2 months ago, and this month he will compete in Cannes. Chen Lian and Yu Liwei knew each other very well, and they would drink together every day when they were filming on stage. As for director Chen De, Chen Lian hasn't seen him for a long time. It seems that the last time we met was when he was attending the Golden Rooster Awards, more than a year ago. Chen Lian raised his glass and looked at them and said, "I wish you can win the grand prize tomorrow and add a few more trophies to Chinese language films. I have no hope. I'll just watch director Cheng's Jing Ke assassinate the king of Qin." Yu Liwei picked up the cup and said with a smile. Director Cheng pursed his lips and smiled slightly, and said in a reserved manner, "Your pictures of heaven and earth are very good, and I hope you will win the award." Yu Liwei just smiled and did not continue to compliment him. Instead, Gong Li held Chen Lian's arm and said, "Both directors have hope of winning the award, but I don't have much hope. Chen Lian patted her arm, held up the cup and said, I'm the most unlikely one. I'm just an audience member. I hope you all can win the prize to make me happy. I'll drink first. After saying that, Chen Lian drank the wine in the glass and stopped discussing the award with them, lest none of them would be able to accept the results when they come out tomorrow. Yu Liwei's Heaven and Earth did not win the award, nor did Gong Li Jingke Assassins The King of Qin, directed by Cheng De, only won the technical award. The movie Jingke Assassins The King of Qin is difficult to criticize. For Chinese people, such a movie is not very good to watch. The casting and performance of the characters are very different from traditional perceptions. The image of the 18-year-old Ying Zheng and the teacher Li Suejian in his 30s are too different, and their acting methods are too crazy. It's not that the acting is not good, it's just that I'm not used to it, and it challenges everyone's inherent perceptions. However, foreign filmmakers probably like this kind of performance, but it's still impossible to win awards. It's not just the actor who performs well that can win the award, it also depends on the director. A few people sat there drinking wine and chatting about everything, including literature and movies. It wasn't until about 9 o'clock that everyone dispersed and went back to their respective rooms to rest. Back in the room, Chen Lian was admiring the cheongsam Gong Li would wear tomorrow. Does it look good? It's not worse than your design, Gong Li said behind Chen Lian, lying on his shoulder. Chen Lian nodded and said, it's very beautiful. It will look beautiful on you. Gong Li tilted her head and said in Chen Lian's ear, do you want to see me put it on? Chen Lian suppressed his curious desire and said, let's see tomorrow, otherwise I'm afraid it will be damaged and you won't have anything to wear tomorrow. Gong Li chuckled, wrapped her arms in front of Chen Lian, hooked his chin with her fingers and said, I still have the cheongsam I wore during the opening ceremony. You can have this. I saw the photos on the news and thought it was very beautiful. Chen Lian immediately became interested. Gong Li couldn't help but click Chen Lian's chin and said, do you want to see it or break it? I want it all. Gong Li is very tall and has a very tall figure. She wears a cheongsam and shows off her charm to the fullest, which makes Chen Lian feel itchy. Gong Li twisted her body and walked up to Chen Lian, pulled up her hair and said, am I beautiful? It's beautiful. Chen Lian put his arms around Gong Li's waist and said, sometimes I think, I am so lucky. Gong Li nuzzled Chen Lian's face like a kitten, lightly opened her red lips and said, you can ruin my clothes now. Chen Lian hugged Gong Li, looked into her eyes and kissed her. The other hand skillfully unbuttoned the cheongsam. Chen Lian put his palm in, and was a little surprised by the feeling of vacuum. He asked Gong Li in her ear, why are you not wearing anything underneath? Gong Li raised her head and closed her eyes and gasped, because I know you want me to wear a cheongsam, so you don't have to worry. You really know me so well. Chen Lian picked up Gong Li and walked towards the bed. After an unknown amount of time, Gong Li struggled to sit up, watching her wrinkled cheongsam become high-cut, and missed Chen Lian's wildness just now. Gong Li turned over and looked at Chen Lian and said, I still want it. It doesn't matter if you want it a few times, Chen Lian said and pressed Gong Li under him. Naturally, the little farewell between the two was better than the wedding, and they had a sleepless night. Li Shui also had a sleepless night. She soaked in the bathtub and drank red wine. She raised her white and tender arms, looked at the ring on her finger and smiled for a while before putting her hand down. She stood up, wiped herself off and went out. The rest time is over, and work is best for people like me. Li Shui opened his memo book, found the talent show planning outline that Chen Lian gave him on the plane, and began to fill in the outline. At the closing of the Cannes Film Festival the next day, Gong Li appeared in a golden cheongsam and immediately attracted the attention of all media. At this moment, she was the brightest pearl in Cannes. But this pearl once again missed the Cannes Best Actress. Chen Lian held Gong Li's hand and comforted her softly. Isn't that why I came here this time? After returning to the hotel in the evening, Gong Li was silent for a long time. She had a feeling that she really couldn't win the Best Actress award in Cannes. There is no way to win a Grand Slam at the three major European film festivals. Gong Li felt a little disappointed. She turned to look at Chen Lian while drinking and asked, "Do you think I still have a chance?" Chen Lian thought for a while and said, "Yes, but I guess it won't be possible in the next 2 years. Let's wait. Cannes will not give out a Grand Slam easily." Gong Li sighed and said, "It has been 13 years since I debuted in 1986, and I may really have no chance." "There will be opportunities, I promise you," Chen Lian said softly. "After returning to China, I will help you find a good script and a good director, and I will definitely let you win a Grand Slam." Gong Li couldn't help laughing when she heard this, leaned on Chen Lian's shoulder and said, "Then what if I still want an Oscar?" Chen Lian touched his chin and said with a smile, "Oscar, isn't this simpler? Can you please stop bragging? Oscar is owned by your family. It doesn't matter who wins. You have to understand that the Oscars are different from Cannes. They are not so pure. There are many ways to win awards." Gong Li smiled and thought Chen Lian was just trying to coax her. She leaned into his arms and said softly, "Then I'll wait for you to present her to the Oscar awards stage. I never let the woman I love down." "This sentence is too false, change it." "Well, I can definitely do what I promised." "That's pretty much it? You promised me yesterday that you would let me be on top today. Come on then. I'm ready to ruin your new Chong Sam. I have been working overtime too late recently, so I will update it first and then add another chapter in the afternoon. I can't bear it anymore, so I will take a nap first. I have been working overtime too late recently, so I will update it first and then add another chapter in the afternoon. I can't bear it anymore, so I will take a nap first." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 427. Chapter 413 411. Be the man behind you. May in Cannes is over, and countless filmmakers left here with regrets. Although Chen Lian has no regrets about his trip to Cannes, people around him now have regrets and feel a little disappointed and lost. Although Gong Li seems to have nothing to do with Chen Lian's company, she still feels disappointed in her heart. She is only one step away from winning the Grand Slam. She has been to Cannes several times over the years, and every time she came back disappointed. She wonders if there will be another time. On the plane, Chen Lian looked at Gong Li's side face and did not continue to comfort her. He just gently held her hand and asked her to find a good script for her after returning to the capital. All he could do was help her behind the scenes. Li Shui, who was on the other side, looked at the figures of Chen Lian and Gong Li leaning together. A trace of envy flashed in his heart. His eyes fell on his fingers and he subconsciously shrank into his sleeves. This was a gift she bought for herself in the name of Chen Lian, just to put an end to her regrets. After the plane landed in Beijing, Chen Lian stayed in Beijing for a few days and then flew to Yangcheng. First, he stopped by to see the Miss Universe contest, and second, he went to Leixin Electronics to see new products and complete the layout of the mobile phone industry. This year's Miss Universe competition is more lively than last year, with more people participating. Last year's award-winning contestants have all developed well this year, some have entered the industry, and some have become professional models. Chen Lian watched in Shenzhen for 2 days, chatted with Cheng Shifen about the talent show, and then went to Yangcheng. The second generation of Magic Flute player has been successfully developed. It has made great breakthroughs in sound quality and memory. The memory has doubled. The second generation product will definitely become a popular product next year. Now many manufacturers have begun to develop similar products, and many MP3 players have appeared. There are also manufacturers who want to authorize the LNA format, and Lifuchen has authorized them all. Sony and Microsoft also launched their own audio formats and began to compete with LNA and MP3 formats to seize the market. MO Flutes holding onto the LNA format will only destroy its future. The more manufacturers use the LNA format, the more money MO Flute will make and the larger its market share will be. It's like an operating system. The bigger the ecology is, the more it will stand in an invincible position. As for whether it will affect the development of motorcycle music players, Chen Lian is not worried. They still have magic flute music and first mover advantages, so they are not afraid of competition at all. Magic flute music is currently developing very smoothly. Chen Lian is not too worried. He is mainly worried about the layout of the mobile phone industry. If you want to produce mobile phones in China, you must have mobile phone cameras. There are very few domestic manufacturers that have obtained licenses. Bird started to apply for a license when it started building factories last year and advertising, but it has not applied yet. Leixin is also applying for a production license now, but it will take time to successfully obtain the license, but Chen Lian is not in a hurry. Domestic mobile phones are still in a blank stage, and there is plenty of time. However, when applying for a license, you must also build a factory and establish a complete supply chain. Shangzhen does not have a layout in the mobile phone industry in China. Chen Lian still has to cooperate with Kijian. They have independent and complete production lines and are independently developed. After Chen Lian held a meeting in Leixin for a few days, he led his team to Shenzhen to discuss cooperation with Visible. Leixin didn't have much else but had a lot of money, so it was very easy to cooperate. The only trouble is that Shenzhen requires Leixin to build a factory in Shenzhen. Leixin has always cooperated well with the local area in Yangcheng, and various policies and benefits are also very good. Now if the factory is built in Shenzhen, Chen Lian was a little irritated. This was difficult to do. Yang Chen was still actively helping Leixin apply for a license. He couldn't give up the opportunity to apply for a license. After returning from Kijian, Chen Lian and Xiao Linmu talked for a long time in the hotel room. In the end, they still did not agree to the terms and could only continue to negotiate with Kijian. The subsequent negotiations were very difficult, and it took nearly 2 weeks of back and forth before finally reaching a cooperation. Chen Lian spent a lot of money on this, but he didn't feel bad. Anyway, they are all made abroad, and Magic Flute can now bring in a lot of profits every day. The profits of music players are far greater than VCDS, not to mention the licensing fees for audio formats and Magic Flute music. Chen Lian had his own reasons for choosing to cooperate with Kijian. He really had technology, but his development was really rubbish. As the first listed mobile phone company, it suffered from poor management and delisted in 2004. For a state-owned enterprise with technology to be unable to defeat Waveguide, we can only say that it is too incompetent. However, the main reason is that Kijian cooperates with Shangzhen and can directly OEM Shangzhen models, which makes it lose its research and development capabilities. Chen Lian is just waiting to step on Kijian's corpse in a few years and absorb his nutrients to strengthen himself. Although Shangzhen is willing to cooperate, they will become competitors in a few years. The honeymoon period for cooperation is only a few years away. Moreover, Chen Lian does not want to become another science and technology construction company. Shangzhen will not bring out the core technology. If it wants to survive for a long time, Leixin must have its own technology. Without technology, it can only be an assembly plant. Bird is also a good example. It once dominated the country, but was later beaten to death with a stick. Chen Lian does not expect Leixin Mobile to dominate the country. As long as it can survive and continue to accumulate technology, it will have a place in the future sooner or later. After concluding the negotiation with Kijian, Chen Lian flew to Tokyo to meet with Li Fuzhen. Xiao Linmu was involved in the early stage of the mobile phone matter, and Li Fuzhen would be needed later, but he still had to meet with her to discuss the plan in detail. In the hotel, after Chen Lian and Li Fuzhen finished chatting, she looked at Chen Lian and said, "You seem to have been guarding against Shangzhen." Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, of course, you can regard Leixin as Sija. Sooner or later, the relationship between you and Sangzhen will become competitors. Li Fuchen nodded. She was well aware of the grudges between chaebol. Even if she was Sangzhen's daughter, she would become a competitor in the future. From the time you and I cooperated to become independent from Sangzhen, everything was doomed, so be prepared in advance. Chen Lian looked at Li Fuchen's thick hair and gently scratched her hair a few times with his fingers. Li Fuchen squinted his eyes like a kitten and snorted comfortably. I got on your pirate ship, and now it seems I can't get off. Li Fuchen leaned into Chen Lian's arms and murmured. Chen Lian smiled softly, kissed her on the forehead and said, then don't do it, this pirate ship will become a giant ship in the future. Li Fuchen himself also knew that Sangzhen had nothing to do with him anymore. He would inherit at most some inheritance in the future, and it would be very small. The most important thing was to grow up with Chen Lian. After Chen Lian and Li Jiangzi talked last time, Li Fuchen went to plead with Li Jiangzi again. She is now equivalent to a married daughter. Lian, will you always support me? Li Fuchen looked up at Chen Lian and asked. Chen Lian rubbed her head and said, of course, I am willing to be the man behind you. Li Fuchen felt something strange behind him and couldn't help but twist and said, is it behind this? Chen Lian laughed and said, don't you like it best when I'm behind your back? Li Fuchen leaned in Chen Lian's arms, looked up at his chin, opened his mouth and bit his chin. This time it was like dry wood and a fire, and the atmosphere in the room was on fire. While Chen Lian and Li Fuchen were having sex, Li Shui was in Ginza looking at a store being renovated with Jifa and Wang Zuxian. Are you alone? Where is Chen Lian? Jifa asked, looking at Li Shui. Wang Zuxian also frowned at Li Shui, waiting for his answer. Li Shui immediately explained, Mr. Chen and Mr. Li are discussing Li Xian and the magic flute, and they will be here tomorrow. Jifa snorted angrily and said, now that we are engaged in high technology, we can no longer look down on these things. Li Shui kept smiling and explained, no, it's just that the matter is more urgent and the investment is relatively large, so that's why we go there first. Mr. Chen still attaches great importance to our side. Wang Zuxian sighed leisurely, looked at Li Shui and asked, then when will he come over tomorrow? Tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow morning, Mr. Chen will have to attend the Magic Flute spokesperson signing conference and go to Fuji TV. He won't have time to come over in the afternoon. After speaking, Li Shui handed a bag in her hand to Wang Zuxian and said, these are new products designed by Mr. Chen during this period. 2 of them are specially designed for you. Wang Zuxian took it, took out the design drafts, looked through them for a while, and couldn't help laughing. Then she took out the design drafts alone and kept them. She was going to find a master to make them. Jifa came over and asked curiously, show me the design. Wang Zuxian shook her head and said, no, you can see for yourself. Didn't he also design one for you? Jifa said in disgust, it's so ugly, show me yours. No, Wang Zuxian snorted, took the things and left. Jifa looked at her back and raised his hand to look at his design draft. He felt a little disgusted, but he still put it away. Li Shui saw the corner of the design draft and her fair face blushed slightly. She didn't expect Chen Lian to design that kind of clothes. After Jifa put away the design drafts, he looked at Li Shui and asked, by the way, where is the painting Lian said he painted last time? At the hotel, Mr. Chen was preparing to use it to participate in this year's Tokyo Art Exhibition, Li Shui explained. Jifa frowned slightly and said, didn't he say that he would announce it to the public as an anonymous person? Why would he want to participate in an art exhibition again? Li Shui shook her head slightly and said, I don't know the details. I'll ask him myself. Jifa didn't take it to heart. He looked at Li Shui and asked with interest, do you want to go have dinner together? Li Shui hesitated for a moment, but was pulled away by Jifa before she could refuse. Let's go. I know there is a very good izakaya. Jifa pulled Li Shui out without saying anything, and asked curiously, how is your drinking capacity? It's okay, I don't usually like drinking. The sake here is very good, you must try it. I'm not very good at drinking. It doesn't matter. I'm here. It's okay to get drunk. On the streets of Ginza in the evening, two girls disappeared into the crowd while chatting and laughing. When Chen Lian got up the next morning, he unexpectedly didn't see Li Shui. He called her and found out that Jifa had gotten him drunk last night. Chen Lian couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth, remembering that he seemed to have forgotten to remind Li Shui, and he didn't know if anything happened after he was drunk last night. At around 8 o'clock, Chen Lian and Li Fujian went to attend the signing ceremony of Hamasaki Ayumi and the magic flute together. Hamasaki was very young and was not shy when he saw Chen Lian. He chatted with Chen Lian openly and even talked about Fukata Kyoko. Hearing the name Fukata Kyoko, Chen Lian suddenly remembered that 2 years ago, Fukata Kyoko, Sakai Noriko and the others came together to uncover the rules for themselves. Kyoko Fukata was only 16 years old at that time, but she seemed to be an adult now. Chen Lian thought of Kyoko Fukata's small beam and couldn't help tapping his fingers. Lian-kun, Hamasaki waved his hand in front of Chen Lian and said with a smile, Lian-kun, are you thinking about Kyoko? She often mentions you to me and admires you very much. Chen Lian looked at her in surprise and asked, you talk about me a lot? What do you say? I say you are very talented and very gentle when we get along, Hamasaki said with a smile. Chen Lian couldn't help but squint his eyes. He had met Fukata Kyoko once, and they got along very gently. Chen Lian looked at Hamasaki Ayumi and said with a smile, are you and her good friends? Ayumi Hamasaki nodded immediately and said, yes, I am a very good friend. I have always heard Kyoko talk about you, but I didn't expect that there would be an opportunity to cooperate this time. Chen Lian smiled and said, then I'll invite Kyoko to have dinner with me next time. It's getting late now. Let's go out and sign the contract. Okay, Hamasaki stood up immediately and followed Chen Lian out. After the signing, Chen Lian called Sakai Noriko and asked her to bring Fukata Kyoko to see him tomorrow. On the way to Fuji TV, Li Fujian looked at Chen Lian and asked, can you speak Japanese? I only know a few words and don't have time to learn. Chen Lian put away the phone and said with a smile. Then why don't you learn Korean? Because you have learned Chinese, I like you to be my translator. Do you watch the Japanese translator movie? We can watch it together next time and learn from it. I always feel that what you say is not serious. Chen Lian smiled and said nothing, discussing why film art is not serious. Soon the car arrived at the entrance of Fuji TV. After getting off the car, Chen Lian looked at the Fuji TV building and remembered the scene of the bombing of Tokyo. After finishing all these things, Chen Lian felt that he still had to stop and think about art. The money he made now was too much to spend, so he would leave it to Li Fujian to manage it in the future. Go make art yourself. I really want to do it again. Chen Lian couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the clean walls of the Fuji TV building, and saw his old friend Ito Muragi walking towards him. Ito Muragi enthusiastically greeted him and said, Li Yasu-kun. Long time no see. Welcome to Tokyo. In the past, Ito Muragi treated Chen Lian as an artist, but now he treats him as a financial sponsor. After all, there is no way to refuse a donation of $1 million. The festival is facing financial difficulties right now, so $1 million would be a lifesaver. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to help Chen Lian connect with Fuji TV. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 428. Chapter 414 412. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have worked hard. Downstairs at Fuji TV, Chen Lian and Ito Murangi exchanged a few pleasantries in Chinese. Li Fujian listened to their conversation, smiled and stretched out his hand and said, "Hello, I am Li Fujian, Lian's partner." Ito Murangi immediately stretched out his hand and shook it gently and said, "I am Ito Murangi, a friend of Li Yasukun. Nice to meet you." Although Ito Murangi is from the art world, he is no stranger to Li Fujian. There has been a lot of news about magic flute music recently, and he has read it several times in the newspaper. Chen Lian said with a smile, "Thank you Ito-san for the introduction this time. I will definitely thank you when the cooperation is successful." Ito Murangi understood Chen Lian's subtext and immediately said with a smile, "Lian-kun, let's go in, the people from Fuji TV are already waiting for you." Chen Lian nodded and said, "After this, you must have a drink with Ito-san." "No problem. I also have many questions that I would like to ask Lian for advice," Ito Murangi replied with a smile. After the group went upstairs, they met the president of Fuji TV. Oh, no, they don't call him that in Japan. They like to call him the president. Fuji TV has a lot of cooperation with China. In the 1980s, it cooperated with CCTV many times and introduced many Japanese dramas to the mainland. They were very interested in the cooperation that Chen Lian and Li Fujian came to talk about, especially after seeing that South Korea, Hong Kong, and China were all involved. Their interest became even greater. They might not be that interested in other shows, but in music talent shows, Japan can jump up and hit them on the knees. Looking at Japan for Asian music is not an empty talk. What Chen Lian was talking about was not just a program, but the cultural influence. European and American music and movies swept across Asia last year, and Japan has fallen far behind in the cultural field in recent years. Even its influence in Asia is much smaller. Coupled with South Korea's recent announcement of the slogan of rejuvenating the country through entertainment, people in the Japanese entertainment industry also have a sense of crisis. If you don't participate this time, Japan's entertainment industry will have less and less influence on the outside world. To put it bluntly, several major Asian countries have participated, and Japan has not been brought to play. This is also a kind of cultural isolation. When chatting with different people, the things they talk about will naturally be different. If it were just a small employee or a middle-level or high-level person, Chen Lian would definitely not talk about these things. He would only talk about some economic benefits and ratings issues. After all, the positions you stand are different, and the things you consider are also different. Kamiyama Chihiro naturally had different considerations as the president. After hearing what Chen Lian said, he was already very moved. After reading the program planning proposal, he decided to join. He was not the only TV station in Japan. If other TV stations cooperated with them, Fuji TV would be left behind. I decided to join, but I have a small request. Kamiyama Chihiro looked at Chen Lian and said, "I hope the finals will be in Tokyo." Chen Lian frowned, then relaxed, and said with a smile, "We can consider it, so that we can come to Japan to promote our music." Li Fujian heard the meaning of Chen Lian's words and said with a smile, "I think it's good. This is in line with the concept of cultural export. I think the Japanese people will like Korean pop music." After hearing this, Chihiro Kamiyama frowned, knocked on the table and said, "Haha, this is just a suggestion from me. Let's follow your plan, but the champion must be a Japanese player." "No problem," Chen Lian said with a smile. "The championship doesn't matter at all. Let's work together first. Once the show is launched, some things will be out of control. Besides, this kind of thing can only be agreed upon privately and will not be written into the contract." After Chen Lian finished cheating, the specific cooperation matters were handed over to the people brought by Li Fujian to discuss with them in detail. What Chen Lian and Li Fujian value most is the influence after the program is completed, and they use this influence to promote Magic Flute music. Magic Flute music will prepare to be listed on Wall Street in the second half of the year, and those shareholders have been impatient to make money. If the program can be successfully launched at the end of the year, it will have a huge impact on the stock price, and that is where the real money will be made. Just like The Voice, what they care about is not the naming fee, but the capital operation behind it is the key. TV shows can only make a small amount of money, but neither Chen Lian nor Li Fujian look down upon this small amount of money. After the cooperation intention is reached, the rest is to communicate the details. The big guys will definitely not be involved in these matters. At noon, the group went out to eat. Japan also has a wine table culture, which is very similar to that in China. At the wine table, Ito Muragi took the initiative to pour a glass of wine for Chen Lian and said with a smile, "Has Lian-kun created any new works recently?" Chen Lian thanked Ito Muragi for helping to introduce people from Fuji TV, and said with a smile, "I was just going to tell you that I created an oil painting last year and want to participate in this Tokyo Art Festival." "Really?" Ito Muragi looked at Chen Lian in surprise. Chen Lian smiled, picked up the small wine glass and said, "Of course." Cheers. Drinking at noon was not a full meal, everyone was very restrained. At the end of the day, Kame Yamachi and Hiro even invited Chen Lian to drink together in the evening. Chen Lian naturally refused to agree with Li Fujian beside him, so he just exchanged contact information and left. Then Chen Lian and Li Fujian also separated. He wanted to see Miss Wang Xianxian and also talk to Ji Fa. Her own assistant also has evil intentions. Li Shui didn't even get to work on time today. Today, Ji Fa must know what forced punishment is. The bustling Ginza seems not to have been affected by last year's financial crisis. It can only be said that Japanese people are still rich. Chen Lian looked at the enclosed store that had not yet been renovated. He walked around and took a look around. He was still very satisfied with the decoration here. The new Chinese style combined with some fashion elements looks very interesting. However, both Ji Fa and Wang Zuxian were not there, so Chen Lian missed the opportunity. Li Shui helped him arrange his itinerary before. Today, Li Shui suddenly took a break, which he was not used to. Chen Lian was about to leave when he turned around and bumped into Ji Fa. Ji Fa looked at Chen Lian with a smile, looked at him carefully and said, "How are you doing lately?" "Not bad," Chen Lian replied, then took her hand and walked outside. Ji Fa was pulled by Chen Lian and said reluctantly, "Where are you pulling me? I have something to deal with when I come here." "Did you get Li Shui drunk last night and plot against her?" "No. We just drank together. Do you think I believe it? If you don't believe me, why don't you ask? I'll make it clear to you." After Chen Lian pulled Ji Fa out, he walked directly towards the nearby Love Hotel. After choosing a room type at random, the two of them were a little dumbfounded after going upstairs. Why does this room have such an avant-garde theme? Prison style. Ji Fa originally had some expectations in her heart, but looking at those props, she suddenly wanted to give up. It's just that Chen Lian grabbed her wrist tightly, giving her no chance to run away. Unable to run away, she could only give in. Ji Fa held Chen Lian's arm and begged, "Can you be gentle?" Chen Lian ignored Ji Fa and directly grabbed her and walked into the room. He looked at the iron shelf and thought about it for a while before he understood. Ji Fa couldn't help but swallowed and said, "I think the bed over there is quite good." Oh, Chen Lian turned his head and looked at Ji Fa with a smile, and then hung her up. Authentic big characters. After Chen Lian fixed Ji Fa, he looked at the small props on the table and found that the hotel provided quite a lot of them, and they were all brand new and unopened. This hotel is quite good at doing business. Who can resist seeing these props? You must try them all. Chen Lian turned to look at Ji Fa and asked, "Which one do you like?" Jifa snorted and turned away to ignore Chen Lian. He looked so stubborn that he looked like a prosecutor, and he was still a product of the kingdom of heaven with blonde hair. Tisk, the little movie came into reality. Chen Lian got a little excited, picked up a prop and walked towards Jifa. It didn't take long for the investigator to recruit them all. He hung there limply looking at the small pink toy that was shaking his head in Chen Lian's hand, and begged Chen Lian to help her put it down. It's not impossible to put you down, it depends on your performance. Chen Lian put the little toy aside, wiped his hands and untied Jifa. Jifa, who was free to move, hugged Chen Lian and bit down. Time flew by, and more than an hour passed in the blink of an eye. Chen Lian took a sip of water and looked at the missed calls on his phone, and immediately called Wang Zuxian back. Jifa, who had just regained some strength, immediately smiled evilly and leaned over. Taking advantage of Chen Lian's inability to speak, he stretched out his little foot and rubbed it back and forth. Chen Lian glared at Jifa, kept his tone and made an appointment with Wang Zuxian on a time and place to meet. After hanging up the phone, he grabbed Jifa's foot that he wanted to take back. Want to run? It's too late, Chen Lian grabbed Jifa's ankle and dragged her back. Jifa turned over and wanted to run away, shouting, Xiaoxian is still waiting for you. There's enough time, don't you like to find people to drink with? I'll drink you to death today. Stop filling it, it's full. Then can you hurry up? 40 minutes later, Chen Lian came out of the Love Hotel alone. He looked at the time and saw that there were still 10 minutes left at the time agreed upon by Wang Zuxian. It was almost perfect to take a car there. The last time I was in Paris with Wang Zuxian, we made an appointment to climb Mount Fuji together, but that was definitely not possible tonight. We wanted to have a meal first to exchange feelings. In the barbecue restaurant, Chen Lian was turning over the sizzling and oily barbecue, while Wang Zuxian sat aside and waited for Chen Lian to feed it. Chen Lian picked up a piece of barbecue, dipped it in some seasonings, put it into Wang Zuxian's slightly opened red lips, and asked with a smile, is it delicious? Wang Zuxian squinted her eyes happily and nodded, it's delicious, the beef is so tender. You shouldn't say it's because I baked it. That's why it tastes good, Chen Lian said with a smile. Wang Zuxian hummed, you little kid, do you want to give you a little red flour? Okay, Chen Lian leaned forward and said, one on each side. Wang Zuxian looked at Chen Lian and smiled foolishly, then hugged his face and kissed him. Hey, 2 little red flowers. 2 don't seem to be enough. You have to lose one by one, don't be greedy. Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian laughed and joked for a while before they concentrated on eating barbecue. Wang Zuxian ate the barbecue and asked curiously, why did you send me the design instead of the finished clothes? I think this dress was completed by us together, so it would be more meaningful, Chen Lian said softly. Wang Zuxian originally thought that the design draft was drawn by Chen Lian to perfunctory her, but when she heard his answer, she immediately felt very romantic and felt that Chen Lian was very thoughtful. I just don't know when it will be ready. Wang Zuxian bit her chopsticks and said, I want to put it on quickly. Chen Lian smiled and said, don't worry, there is still a long time. When you finish the clothes, we will go to Canada to see the snow together. Then I have to make it quickly. It will snow in Canada in late October. Okay, then let's go see the snow in October. In the car when they were going back together in the evening, Wang Zuxian suddenly leaned into Chen Lian's ear and whispered, I'm sorry, I still have a little red flower, so I can't accompany you tonight. Chen Lian was stunned for a moment and didn't react. Then he understood what she meant, rubbed her head and said, I'm the one who's sorry. I should have come earlier. Wang Zuxian leaned into Chen Lian's arms and said after a while, you are really good at talking. Chen Lian hugged Wang Zuxian and said, I'll tell you this all my life. When he returned to the house Wang Zuxian bought in Tokyo, Chen Lian took a look at the large house and asked curiously, how many buildings did you buy in Tokyo? Wang Zuxian recalled it and said, 7 or 8 buildings, didn't you say you would take advantage of the financial crisis to buy more? You won't lose money, right? Chen Lian shook his head and said, no, but you really like building houses. Like my brother, there are houses everywhere. I learned from him, Wang Zuxian said with a smile. He likes novelty, so he buys houses everywhere. I buy them for investment. It's different. Little rich woman. Chen Lian scratched Wang Zuxian's nose and said. Wang Zuxian immediately waved her hand and said, now I am no longer a little rich woman, I have a lot of money. Chen Lian said with a smile, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have worked hard. It would be great to have you take care of me. It's too late if you don't work hard now, Wang Zuxian said with a smile. The two entered the house chatting and laughing. After Chen Lian entered, he saw that Jifa also lived here, and she was lying on the sofa eating snacks. Jifa lay on the sofa and didn't want to move at all. Looking at Chen Lian, who was gentle and considerate to Wang Zuxian, she couldn't help but curl her lips. This guy's split personality is becoming more and more obvious. He was so wild in the afternoon and now so gentle again. I just don't know if he was wild or gentle when he slept with Wang Zuxian at night. Jifa suddenly remembered that Wang Zuxian seemed to be inconvenient these days. He turned his head and glanced at Chen Lian, suddenly feeling a little uneasy. Will there be a night attack tonight? Jifa thought for a while and felt that it was impossible. She had been the one who attacked Chen Lian at night before, and she had never been attacked by Chen Lian at night. At around 11 o'clock in the evening, Jifa returned to his room. When he closed the door, he hesitated but didn't lock it. What if there really is a night attack? Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 429. Chapter 415-413. Fukata Kyoko's comprehension ability. Morning. In the kitchen, Chen Lian brought out the breakfast he had just made and looked at Jifa, who had just gotten up listlessly, and said. Jifa looked at him resentfully and muttered, why is it so early? Did you let me sleep? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have left the door open for him. I was attacked at around 3 o'clock last night and I didn't sleep well until dawn. Chen Lian was also a little sleepy, but Wang Zuxian was in high spirits. He came out of the room and looked at the prepared breakfast and said in surprise, why is it so rich? No wonder I couldn't see you when I got up. Wang Zuxian ran over, kissed Chen Lian and said, reward your little red flower. Chen Lian smiled and pulled Wang Zuxian to sit down and start eating breakfast. Halfway through the meal, he looked at Wang Zuxian and asked, why don't you go climb Mount Fuji today? I'm afraid I won't be able to climb it. Well, let's go next time. It's such an unlucky time, Wang Zuxian said helplessly. Jifa also felt that this was too unlucky, otherwise he would have had a good sleep last night. Instead of climbing Mount Fuji, Chen Lian and Wang Zuxian stayed at home for a day. When they were about to finish the work, Chen Lian received a call from work and wanted to go out. Wang Zuxian was still a little unhappy. Are you not coming back tonight? Wang Zuxian looked at Chen Lian angrily, feeling that he was just making excuses to run away because he was inconvenient these days. Chen Lian replied while changing clothes, maybe it will be a little later. This is a very important partner and it is difficult to refuse. Wang Zuxian said, oh, giving up hope that Chen Lian would come back in the evening. Chen Lian walked over, pinched her face and said, I'll spend the next few days with you while I finish the final work. You said, don't lie, Wang Zuxian immediately said happily. Chen Lian smiled and said, don't be shy, just wait for me at home. After coaxing Wang Zuxian, Chen Lian went out. Li Shui was already waiting for him outside, and she was a little embarrassed to see Chen Lian. Li Shui said apologetically, Mr. Chen, I'm sorry. I drank too much and was unable to go to work yesterday. It doesn't matter, I don't blame you. After Chen Lian got into the car, he said to Li Shui, I have already punished Ji-fa. Li Shui blushed and said softly, fortunately, I ran fast that night. Does she like women? That's right. Chen Lian touched his chin and felt that Ji-fa's orientation was quite vague. Chen Lian's gaze fell on Li Shui's right hand. Li Shui noticed Chen Lian's gaze and put his hand back. Chen Lian glanced at it and didn't care, he just praised it for looking good. Li Shui was panicked at first, but finally realized that she had been wearing it for so many days, and Chen Lian only noticed it today. What's there to be nervous about? He doesn't pay attention to his own changes at all. Li Shui felt a little disappointed and suddenly wanted to take off the ring. By the way, don't buy such a cheap ring next time. When I give you a gift, just choose something more expensive. Chen Lian's words suddenly interrupted Li Shui's thinking. She was stunned for a moment and turned to look at Chen Lian and asked subconsciously, how do you know this is? Didn't you buy it in Cannes? Chen Lian paused and said, I thought it was a gift you picked yourself, but I didn't expect it to be wrong. Li Shui pursed her lips and stopped talking, and the melancholy in her heart suddenly disappeared. Chen Lian smiled and said, that's right. How can you give a gift and let others buy it by themselves? Next time I will choose it for you personally. Li Shui wanted to explain, but she was greedy and wanted to receive the gift that Chen Lian personally selected for herself. In the end, she just nodded dully. Soon the car arrived at a courtyard, which was one of the houses previously bought for Noriko Sakai and the others. Chen Lian did not come out to work tonight. The cooperation has been discussed, so there is still so much work to do. When you are the boss behind the scenes, you must act like the boss behind the scenes. Don't always compete with employees for work. Don't wait for me, pick me up tomorrow morning, Chen Lian and Li Shui said and got off the car. Li Shui watched Chen Lian disappear into the courtyard before she withdrew her gaze. She hesitated for a moment at the ring on her hand, then took it off and put it away. It's better to draw this period later and let Chen Lian draw it. Li Shui put the ring that looked like a period into her pocket, told the driver to drive to Lifujian, then entered the state of a strong working woman and started reading the information. Chen Lian doesn't care about those trivial things. As an assistant, she can't ignore it, otherwise she won't be able to answer the boss's questions. In the deep and elegant courtyard, the summer breeze blows gently. Under the eaves of the courtyard, the wind chimes are blown by the wind and make a crisp sound. Kyoko Fukata sat on the tatami and looked at Noriko Sakai, clasping her fingers nervously. She also didn't expect that she would be exposed after bragging to her best friend. She never thought that Chen Lian would find Ayumi Hamasaki as his spokesperson. Noriko Sakai comforted her softly, don't worry, nothing will happen. Moreover, you came that night, and you were indeed taken care of by those people afterwards. Sooner or later, you will have to face Mr. Lian. Chen Lian just opened the door and came in at this time. He looked at Fukata Kyoko sitting there, and just glanced at her and felt that she had become more beautiful. Chen Lian looked at Noriko Sakai, who was about to stand up first, waved to her and then sat opposite Kyoko Fukata and asked, do you know what I want to ask you for? Kyoko Fukata nodded nervously and explained in a low voice, I'm sorry, since I came here that time, many people misunderstood me as yours lover. Chen Lian took the initiative to answer. He almost understood what it meant, and then said to her, in this case, forget it, you can go. Huh? Fukata Kyoko looked at Chen Lian and was stunned for a moment, then asked cutely, aren't you angry? Chen Lian smiled and shook his head and said, there's nothing to be angry about. There's nothing wrong with it if I can help you. I also want to thank you for telling others that I am a gentle person. Listening to Chen Lian's words, Fukata Kyoko really felt that he was a very gentle person. Looking at Chen Lian's handsome face, she didn't know what to do for a while. He could only look at Noriko Sakai for help. Noriko Sakai knelt down beside her and poured a cup of tea for Chen Lian, and said softly, Kyoko admires you very much. I hope you can give her a chance. Kyoko Fukata glanced at Chen Lian shyly, lowered her head slightly and acquiesced to Noriko Sakai's words. Chen Lian smiled and said to Fukata, Kyoko, there's no need for this. Since you didn't say anything nonsense, forget about it. You can still say this when someone asks you in the future. If you need help, you can always come to us. Noriko Sakai looked at the stunned Fukata Kyoko and couldn't help but sigh. She turned to Chen Lian with a smile and said, I've prepared dinner for you. I'll go prepare it and let Kyoko chat with you to kill some boring time. Kyoko Fukata reacted immediately and said, I will take good care of Lian-kun. Then thank you for the hard work. Kyoko Noriko Sakai bowed slightly to Chen Lian and Fukata Kyoko, stood up and went out, and finally closed the door considerately. Chen Lian drank tea and looked at Fukata Kyoko, and asked curiously, why do you pretend to have a relationship with me? Will you receive a lot of care? Fukata Kyoko nodded slightly and said, when Mr. Ito Muraji sent me here that time, he told me that I would be taken care of in the company in the future. I have indeed received a lot of care in the past 2 years, and I have filmed several dramas. Chen Lian recalled Fukata Kyoko's office and asked curiously, how is your income? Perhaps because Fukata Kyoko was not so nervous when it came to serious matters, she looked at Chen Lian and said, the firm has been pretty good to us. Previously, when Senior Hanamai Suzuki wanted to retire, the firm did not stop her, but the income allocated was always very small. Chen Lian nodded and said, it's really unique. Most Japanese offices do not give artists much of a share, and they squeeze them to the extreme. Chen Lian remembers seeing the annual advertising endorsement rankings of Japanese female stars in 2021. The top-ranked female star's endorsement income was less than 70 million yen. However, the office where Kyoko Fukata works is quite good. Even if the artist is old and has no job, he will be paid wages to support him. But it's actually not much compared to the money those artists earn. Chen Lian looked at Kyoko Fukata and asked, do you want to make money? Kyoko Fukata said with some embarrassment, I think so. Are you still a singer? Chen Lian thought for a while and said, there will be a large-scale singer talent show this year. Please sign up for it. After it is over, I will give you 2 endorsements, and the endorsement fee will not be less than a Yumi Hamasaki. Surprise flashed in Fukata Kyoko's eyes. If you participate in the show, you can get endorsements. That must mean you can get a ranking. As for the endorsement fees, they are even more. Ayumi Hamasaki just became popular this year. When he signed a contract with Magic Flute, he received a high endorsement fee of more than 20 million yen. This is a price after the financial crisis, which is already a lot. However, the surprise in Fukata Kyoko's eyes was quickly suppressed. She was not a child, so she naturally knew that there was no such thing as a free dinner. But Chen Lian didn't put forward any conditions. Instead, he stood up and said, come for a walk with me. Kyoko Fukata immediately stood up and followed Chen Lian to the courtyard. She just walked to the hot spring. Feza still needs time to prepare dinner. I'll take a shower, Chen Lian said and took off his clothes to take a shower. Kyoko Fukata stood there and looked at Chen Lian's back, took a deep breath and walked over to take the clothes he took off. After Chen Lian took off his shirt, he stood there motionless. Kyoko Fukata looked at Chen Lian's well-defined abdominal muscles and took the initiative to kneel down and continue to help him take off the rest of his clothes. Chen Lian looked at Fukata Kyoko sitting there and busy, and felt that her comprehension ability was also very good. Very smart girl. More than half an hour later, Noriko Sakai finished cooking dinner and did not see Chen Lian and Kyoko Fukata in the living room. She went outside to look around and heard the sound of water coming from the hot spring and Kyoko Fukata's suppressed hum. She immediately understood what had happened. What? So I tidied up a bit, put on my yukata and walked into Tanken's room. Late that night, Kyoko Fukata didn't fall asleep. She looked at Chen Lian's sleeping profile with her eyes open, and felt as if a stone had fallen to the ground in her heart. She had been waiting for this day since that night 2 years ago, and now she finally got her wish. Artists in the entertainment industry in Japan really have no status at all. There are dozens of offices in small Japan, and each office has many artists, large and small. The competition is unimaginably fierce. In the past 2 years, Kyoko Fukata has watched Noriko Sakai and Norika Fujiwara's lives and careers go exceptionally smoothly, and she is naturally very envious. Now she has found her own support, and he is such an excellent man, who is better than those short, fat old Mediterranean men. When Kyoko Fukata was thinking wildly, Noriko Sakai hugged her from behind and said softly, "Kyoko, don't think so much, go to bed early." Kyoko Fukata hummed, and then asked softly, "Senior, thank you." Early the next morning, after Chen Lian got up and finished breakfast, he wiped his mouth and said to Kyoko Fukata, "I don't have time to choose a gift for you. Just buy whatever you like." "Okay Fukata." Kyoko took the card, wondering how much money would be in it. After Chen Lian left, Fukata Kyoko immediately looked at Noriko Sakai curiously and asked, "Senior, how much money will be in this?" Noriko Sakai said with a smile, "You will know after you see it yourself, but you should be able to buy this courtyard." "So many," Fukata Kyoko said in surprise. "The first gift is always more expensive." Kyoko Fukata looked at the card in her hand and was silent for a long time. Finally, she raised her head and looked at Noriko Sakai and said, "Maybe I should have taken the initiative 2 years ago." "It's not too late." Sakai Noriko patted Fukata Kyoko's hand and said, "Let's go and pick a gift for yourself." Kyoko Fukata immediately nodded excitedly, changed her clothes and went out with Noriko Sakai. Chen Lian on the other side was sitting in the car and looking at the briefing handed over by Li Shui. Seeing that Magic Flute had officially signed a contract with Fuji TV, he didn't pay much attention to this matter. "This time I came to Japan not only to finish my business, but also to get some unexpected gains that Chen Lian did not expect. However, this trip to Tokyo only lasts a few days. Huo Jiankai has already called to say that the filming has been completed and the filming will be started in a while, urging Chen Lian to go back early." In the next few days, Chen Lian accompanied Wang Zuxian to play around. He couldn't really run out to play every day just because of her physical inconvenience. You should be gentle and considerate as a person, and a scumbag should also have your own professional ethics. After playing with Wang Zuxian for a few days, Chen Lian was disliked by Ji Fa. That night, Ji Fa said intermittently while enduring Chen Lian's night attack, "Can you please don't come here at 3 o'clock every night? I can't sleep well every day." Chen Lian took a breath and said, "I'm leaving tomorrow. I have to go back to China to film. Then I won't sleep tonight." Ji Fa took the initiative to pull away, turned around to face Chen Lian, looked into his eyes and said, "Bring out your wildness. I'm afraid that if you can't control your voice, Xiao Xian will hear it." Ji Fa turned around and looked around, then picked up a small black lace dress and put it in Chen Lian's hand and said, "Can't you think of a way? Then open your mouth." Well. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 430. Chapter 416 414. Gao Yuan Yuan, I want to learn. In the blue sky, a plane drew two long white lines in the sky, and the sky seemed to be divided into three parts. The plane climbed up into the clouds, blocking the scenery of the earth. Chen Lian, who was leaning against the window, retracted his sight, yawned and raised his hand to look at the time. The plane will arrive in the capital in half an hour, and the busy life is finally about to relax. Li Shui, who was sitting aside, was not so leisurely, but was planning how to make the talent show a success. Chen Lian gave her the responsibility for the mainland talent show. Cheng Shifen is in charge of Hong Kong and Southeast Asia, and there are also dedicated people in Japan and South Korea. But it was easy to tell who did well in the last few areas, and Li Shui didn't want to be compared. Seeing how serious Li Shui was, Chen Lian reminded him, next month there will be a meeting on the separation of production and broadcasting in Shanghai. You can attend it then and try to get a spot. After saying this, Chen Lian couldn't help but laugh a little, and said in a funny voice, but you don't have to fight for it. In the past few days, you should contact a few local TV stations and let the news out about this program. Then someone should take the initiative to find you. Mr. Chen, how did you receive the news? Li Shui was surprised that she didn't receive the news. How did Chen Lian know about it in advance? Chen Lian said jokingly, because I am the boss. Li Shui couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that it was true. Although Chen Lian arranged everything by himself, he didn't do everything only through himself. Okay, don't be nervous and do your best. This is a good opportunity, Chen Lian reminded Li Shui. After the company's restructuring, this is the first project. Don't be embarrassed, otherwise Chen Myron will not delegate power to you. I will definitely work hard. Remember what I told you before, don't think about things, think about people, and do your best. The plane landed in the capital soon. Chen Lian did not go home, but went directly to Lu Xiaoli's place. When getting out of the car, Chen Lian just opened the door, stopped, turned around, took out a red jewelry box from his pocket, handed it to Li Shui and said, "This is the gift I picked for you." Li Shui subconsciously reached out to catch it. Before she could thank her, Chen Lian opened the door and got out of the car. Bang! The sound of the car door closing brought Li Shui back to her senses. She looked at the jewelry box in her hand, opened it carefully, and looked at the sparkling diamond necklace inside. She felt as if something had hit her heart. He really picked out a gift for me, Li Shui murmured to herself, picking up the necklace and putting it down in her hand to look at it for a long time, and finally put it back into the jewelry box. Maybe it was inconvenient to wear the necklace by himself, or maybe he wanted Chen Lian to put it on for him. In short, Li Shui didn't want to put it on himself. After putting away the jewelry box, Li Shui showed a happy smile and asked the driver to drive her to the company. On the other side, Chen Lian, who returned home, was sitting at the dining table drinking the iced mung bean soup prepared by Lu Xiaoli. I don't know why the weather started to get hotter in June. Drinking a bowl of mung bean soup at noon is indeed very comfortable. Would you like another bowl? Lu Xiaoli asked gently. Chen Lian put down the spoon and said, "No need, where's Sissy, hasn't she gone on summer vacation yet?" "The holiday won't be until the end of the month," Lu Xiaoli said a little worriedly. "I plan to send her to tutoring during the summer vacation, but her grades are too bad." Chen Lian silently mourned for Sissy. Chicken babies are a skill inherent in Chinese parents. The elder Chen Lian can't take care of it, let his mother worry about it, but the younger Chen Lian thinks he can still take care of it. Chen Lian hadn't seen his little girl for a long time. As soon as he picked her up to communicate about the relationship between father and daughter, she was peed all over her body. Looking at the map on his chest and his daughter who was smiling happily, Chen Lian couldn't laugh or cry. Chen Lian couldn't help but pinch her little face and said, "I gave Dad a big gift when we first met. You love me so much." Lu Xiaoli said with a smile, "It's obviously my fault that you haven't come to see her for so long." Chen Lian snorted and said, "My daughter doesn't do that. This is an expression of love. It's called putting your own mark on it and telling other children that this is her father." "He's a dog," Lu Xiaoli hit Chen Lian angrily. Chen Lian held his daughter high and said, "We, Fei, are born in the year of tiger, not dog. We will be cerebellar tigers in the future." The baby was the cutest. Chen Fei, who was lifted high by Chen Lian, giggled and waved her little hands happily. Lu Xiaoli couldn't help but shook her head. 99% of men in the world are slaves to their daughters. Okay, stop playing, go take a shower and change clothes first. Lu Xiaoli reached out and took Chen Fifei's hand, urging Chen Lian to change clothes. Later, the wet map on my chest will dry up. Chen Lian took off his shirt and threw it aside, hugged Lu Xiaoli from behind and said, "Please accompany me to take a bath." Lu Xiaoli felt her earlobes itching, and she knew it was Chen Lian who was causing trouble without even looking. She couldn't help but hum, put Chen Fifei into the crib and let Chen Lian hold her to take a bath. More than half an hour later, Chen Lian came out to the bedroom carrying Lu Xiaoli with wet hair. People always get lazy in the summer, and Chen Lian is no exception. He will join the team to shoot a movie next month. During this free period, Chen Lian doesn't want to do anything serious. "I have been busy since the Chinese New Year and have finally managed to arrange everything. It is normal to be lazy." After playing with a few children for a few days, Chen Lian just stayed at home and didn't want to go out. However, if he didn't go out, someone would come to his door. In the bright living room, Chen Lian squatted on the TV and put the disc in the VCD. Gao Yuanyuan stood behind Chen Lian and lay on top of him acting coquettishly. "Why don't you go shopping with me? It's so boring at home." After pushing the disc into the VCD, Chen Lian said, "Wait until I finish watching the movie. Then we agreed, you will go shopping with me after the movie." Gao Yuanyuan tilted her head and kissed Chen Lian and said, "I promise you, I really don't know what the point of shopping is." Chen Lian said helplessly. Then he picked up Gao Yuanyuan by her legs, walked to the sofa and threw her down. Gao Yuanyuan, who fell on the sofa, wrinkled her nose and snorted, grabbed Chen Lian's hand and pulled him down. When Chen Li fell on the sofa, Gao Yuanyuan turned over and pressed on him, looked into his eyes and said, "Shopping is not important, I just want you to accompany me." Chen Lian nodded her nose helplessly and said, "I can't stay with you at home." Gao Yuanyuan opened her mouth and bit Chen Lian's finger and said, "You will have bad thoughts at home, and it won't be your finger that you bite later. If you don't like it, I'll take you home after shopping in the evening." "I do not want it." Chen Lian patted Gao Yuanyuan and said, "Come down, the movie has started. I haven't watched it since the filming." Gao Yuanyuan turned it down obediently, looked at the picture on the TV and asked curiously, "Is this the movie you made before? There are no subtitles, and the dialect spoken is incomprehensible. The dialect in Fenyang, Shaanxi, is incomprehensible." Chen Lian also felt that it was too difficult to watch without subtitles, so he made a mental note to ask Lao Jia to add subtitles later. When Kui Ming Liang, played by Chen Lian, appeared on the screen, Gao Yuanyuan said in surprise, "You also know Shaanxi dialect? What did you say just now?" Chen Lian explained, "I said that I played the train well." "Haha, how could a few people act like a train well? That's because you don't know how to appreciate it. You have filmed 3 movies now, right? How much do you know about movies? Do you know what those scenes just meant?" Listening to Chen Lian's words, Gao Yuanyuan was stunned. She was just watching a movie, so why did she take the exam with her? Chen Lian knocked Gao Yuanyuan's head helplessly and said, "Go back and find a teacher to make up for your lessons. Your talent is limited. If you don't work hard the day after tomorrow, your achievements will be limited in the future. Aren't you a teacher? Teacher Chen, please come to class." Gao Yuanyuan said immediately. Chen Lian thought about it for a while and thought it would be okay. She happened to be a little bored while watching a movie, so he gave her a vaginal massage lesson. As an actor, you must not only be able to perform, but also have an understanding of film art. You must know at least the basic audiovisual language, otherwise you will not be able to do film analysis, and you will not be able to understand even good films given to you. Gao Yuanyuan looked at Chen Lian with starry eyes and nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Seeing that Gao Yuanyuan's learning attitude was okay, Chen Lian started teaching her seriously, pressing the remote control with one hand while analyzing the lens language, light, shadow, color, composition, camera positioning, etc. Gao Yuanyuan felt quite bored at first, but after hearing Chen Lian explain a scene clearly, she immediately felt different. He opened his big round eyes and asked, "That shot just now still has this meaning? Does her standing in front of the mirror represent the character's inner struggle and self-examination?" Chen Lian nodded and said, "The heroine's father stopped her from dating the hero and asked her to leave the cultural troupe. She is very entangled between reality on one side and dreams and love on the other, but she cannot express her confusion directly. It can only be expressed through these means. The figure of the father does not appear in the picture, only the voice. His image is the invisible pressure of reality. The heroine turns her back to her father and does not want to face it. She looks in the mirror and examines her heart. The contradictions and entanglements suddenly emerge." Gao Yuanyuan couldn't help turning her head to look at Zhao Tao standing in front of the mirror on the TV. Looking at her worried look, she suddenly felt that Chen Lian was right. Her father had just scolded her and prevented her from pursuing love and dreams. At this time, her heart must be full of troubles and entanglements. Are all literary films so convoluted? No wonder they are literary. After Gao Yuanyuan muttered to herself, she turned to look at Chen Lian and said, "Teacher Chen, I kind of like this feeling. Please continue to tell me." Chen Lian said with a smile, "Okay, he who knows how to study is a good boy, why don't you go out shopping?" Gao Yuanyuan immediately shook her head. She had just understood the movie and was feeling a sense of excitement entering her brain. How can shopping be as interesting as learning? It took Chen Lian and Gao Yuanyuan more than 3 hours to watch a movie. After watching it, Gao Yuanyuan was still immersed in a feeling of enlightenment. Gao Yuanyuan couldn't help but sigh, "I feel like all the previous movies were in vain." It's not in vain. If you think about the movies you watched before, you will have a different understanding. Chen Lian smiled and pulled up Gao Yuanyuan and said, "But after studying, it's time to eat. Let's go out to eat braised pork." Gao Yuanyuan felt hungry when she touched her stomach, but the joy of studying left her unsatisfied. As she walked, she said, "How about we come back after eating and continue watching the movie?" "Okay, as long as you want to learn, I will teach you. Then I'll come and watch movies with you every day. Then I have to charge tuition." "I'm all yours, and you still charge tuition. Teachers also need to eat. Then you eat me when you're done studying." Chen Lian couldn't help but give Gao Yuanyuan a thumbs up. This is a good student. After the two of them came back from eating braised pork, they continued to watch the movie, but the teaching stopped halfway through the movie. "Don't move around. Didn't we agree to watch a movie?" Gao Yuanyuan avoided Chen Lian's restless hands and complained with a red face. Chen Lian grabbed Gao Yuanyuan's slender ankle and said, "We need to balance work and rest. We also have to do radio gymnastics when we go to school." "Gymnastics? How can you do gymnastics like this? It's all the same. Be serious and develop together morally, intellectually, physically, aesthetically, and physically." The two of them didn't finish the remaining half of the movie, so they had to wait for the next teaching session. Such leisurely days did not last for a few days. In the end, Gao Yuanyuan couldn't stand the intense study and ran away. "How can I do radio gymnastics 4 or 5 times in one day? It doesn't matter if you don't take this class." Gao Yuanyuan escaped, and Chen Lian's vacation was coming to an end. He originally planned to visit Zhangqing and Shenzhen, but one of them was busy filming and the other was busy promoting the second part of Return of the Pearl, and they had no time. With regret, Chen Lian had no choice but to go to Hunan to film in the mountains. Huo Jiankai was well prepared this time, and he became more and more like a great director. After Chen Lian joined the set, he watched Huo Jiankai command the entire crew with ease, and felt that he had made great progress. Although he is not a talented player like Jia Zhang, Huo Jiankai is definitely a person with strong learning ability. When filming the first part of The Winner, Huo Jiankai was very immature both in filming and mentality. In the second part, the singer has grown a lot by this time. Nashin Narab has become a mature director with his own style. After Chen Lian joined the team, he was not busy starting filming. Instead, he was in touch with the dog used for filming. Second brother, come here, Chen Lian shouted to the wolf dog while holding a chicken leg. The second child, squatting on the ground, stuck out his tongue and waggled his tail while looking at the chicken drumstick in Chen Lian's hand, but he still squatted there obediently. What a good dog. If you don't want to eat it, I will eat it, Chen Lian sighed, picked up the chicken leg and started eating it himself. The second child's doggy face immediately fell. Cheng Hao, who was eating a box lunch next to him, couldn't help but burst into laughter when he saw this scene. The second brother is a good dog, and Chen Lian is not bad either. I have to rectify the previous chapters recently, so I can't update them on time. I will try my best to maintain daily updates. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 431. Chapter 417, 415. That mountain and that rain. Green mountain forest, noisy bees, and chirping birds. The sky is blue, with white clouds floating in it, like white cotton candy. The clear stream flows in the mountains, reflecting the green shadows of trees and moss-covered rocks. Chen Lian squatted on the rock and bent down to take a sip of the clear stream water. Is it sweet? Cheng Hao asked curiously, standing on the opposite side of the stream. Chen Lian picked up some water and washed his face and said, Tian, try it. Cheng Hao immediately shook his head and said, I'm not drinking. You just washed your face in there. It'll be better if you move up a little bit. Chen Lian lifted up his t-shirt and wiped the water on his face, and couldn't help complaining, I thought it was cooler in the mountains, but I didn't expect it to be so muggy. Cheng Hao raised his head and glanced at the suddenly hazy sky and said, it's going to rain. It will be bad if it rains. It will be difficult to shoot in the next few days. Chen Lian looked up at the sky and felt that it was about to rain. He immediately turned around and shouted towards the hillside behind him, boy! It's raining. Go home. Two dog barks were heard immediately from the deserted hillside, and a large black and yellow wolf dog appeared from the hillside and ran down the hillside. The second child ran to Chen Lian and spun around in a circle, wagging his tail happily and looking at Chen Lian eagerly. Chen Lian reached out and touched the dog's head, took out a small bag of beef jerky from his pocket, took out a piece and threw it into the second child's mouth. He swallowed the small piece of beef jerky without even chewing it, and then looked at Chen Lian helplessly. Chen Lian knocked the dog on the head and said, there is salt, so don't eat too much. The second child whined a few times and watched reluctantly as the beef jerky was put away by Chen Lian. Teacher Chen, you and Er got to know each other so quickly. He ignored you a few days ago. Cheng Hao walked across the narrow stream and stroked Er's head a few times. The second child was very understanding of human nature and rubbed Cheng Hao's palm affectionately. Chen Lian smiled, clapped his hands and said, go back to the village, it will rain later. The second child waggled his tail and ran forward to clear the way. Chen Lian and Cheng Hao followed behind and walked slowly towards the village. The air in the mountains is really good, it's a natural oxygen bar, Chen Lian said without saying anything. Cheng Hao hummed and followed Chen Lian with her hands behind her back. She didn't quite understand what the oxygen bar meant. Oxygen bars emerged quite early in China. They have been around since 1994, but they are not very popular. The two of them didn't say anything, and just walked back to the village. Back in the village, Chen Lian saw Huo Jiankai worrying there. What's wrong? Chen Lian walked over and asked curiously. Huo Jiankai couldn't help but sigh and said, "It's going to rain, and we have to wait several days before we can shoot." Chen Lian patted Huo Jiankai's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, the scenery is more beautiful after the rain." "That's it, this book has been delayed for so long from last year to now. I don't want the film studio to be worried," Huo Jiankai said helplessly. Chen Lian curled his lips and said, "I still have to pay 1 million. I'm not in a hurry." "Why are they in a hurry? It's as if the funds have arrived." Huo Jiankai, this is also the sponsor. He is not in a hurry, so he doesn't say anything. Chen Lian was sitting under the eaves, looking at the gloomy sky, and suddenly wanted to have a few drinks. He turned to Huo Jiankai and asked, "Where's Teacher Tang? Why haven't you seen him? Let's have a drink together tonight." Huo Jiankai leaned on the chair and said with a smile, "You're too late. Teacher Tang went drinking with the old village chief in the village." "Okay, let's have a drink. It just so happens that your wife isn't here." Chen Lian looked at the smoke in the village and couldn't help but suggest, "Get some bacon for the bar." "Okay, I heard from Jiazang that you drank with them every night when you were in Shaanxi. It was cold when we were filming, and I couldn't sleep without drinking something at night." Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai chatted for a while, then stood up and took Cheng Hao to borrow bacon next door. "Teacher Cheng, why are you holding me? I don't drink." Cheng Hao followed Chen Lian in confusion. Chen Lian sighed and said in a somewhat grumpy tone, "There is a girl in the house next door. Their family wants to recruit me as their son-in-law to inherit their family's legacy." Cheng Hao couldn't help but burst into laughter, holding his hands and laughing all the time. "Teacher Chen, why don't you just obey? The girl next door is so handsome, and she still has land for you to grow." Chen Lian shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's not good to be pretty. You're even prettier than her." Cheng Hao said jokingly, "What if you look better than me? There's no need to compare, I won't hesitate if I'm as good looking as you." Chen Lian replied with a smile, then pushed Cheng Hao and said, "So hurry up and borrow a piece of bacon for me. I want to come to your door and they think it's for free. Here's the betrothal gift." Cheng Hao smiled and nodded, taking small steps to knock on the door and borrow some bacon. Chen Lian stood at the intersection and lit a cigarette. Looking at the village with smoke curling up, he felt like it was a paradise. But thinking about the mountain roads here, Chen Lian rejected this ridiculous idea again, feeling a little like why not eat minced meat. The environment here is very good, but the material conditions are very poor. Young people in the village are reluctant to come back after leaving. What feels good to me is just a novelty. If I really lived here for a long time, I probably wouldn't be able to bear this kind of loneliness. The summer breeze brought a bit of coolness, and the smoke Chen Lian held on his fingers was blown away slowly by the wind, and finally merged with the smoke and disappeared into the sky. After a while, a group of children ran out of the school in Zaza. They would look at Chen Lian curiously when they passed by. The children in the mountains are very simple and have bright eyes, as if they can see deep into their hearts at a glance. Chen Lian remembered that he still had beef jerky in his pocket, so he took it out and shared it with them. Chen Lian smiled particularly happily amidst the childish voices thanking his uncle. Cheng Hao, who borrowed bacon not far away, looked at the scene and felt that Chen Lian was quite caring. After all the children ran away happily, Cheng Hao came over carrying a piece of bacon. Chen Lian looked at the bacon that was red in color and exuded a light aroma. He looked at Cheng Hao with some surprise and asked, "This meat is so good. Did you spend money to buy it?" "No," Cheng Hao said with a narrow smile, "I told them that I wanted to ask for a betrothal gift, so I immediately took out the best bacon in the house." Chen Lian rolled his eyes at her and said, "Are you kidding me? I'll punish you by lighting a fire for me later." "I'm lighting the fire, so what are you doing?" "I'll fry you and you'll cook." Cheng Hao looked at Chen Lian in surprise, not expecting that he could cook. Returning to the village committee of the village, Chen Lian ran to the kitchen to wash the bacon and cut the side dishes. He looked back at Cheng Hao, who was still blowing the fire, and suddenly felt speechless. Can't you just light a fire? It doesn't even burn, so what can it do? Chen Lian looked at the disgraced Cheng Hao and shouted helplessly, Lao Huo. Come and light the fire. Isn't Cheng Hao burning? Huo Jian stood up and ran over with a cigarette in his mouth. Looking at Cheng Hao with ashes still on his nose, he couldn't help but click his tongue. Chen Lian shrugged at Huo Jiankai and said, see for yourself, a box of matches is almost half used. Cheng Hao choked on the smoke and coughed twice. He looked at Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai sheepishly and said, I have never burned a fire. I use gas tanks at home. Today's young people lack life experience. Huo Jiankai put the cigarette butt in his mouth and walked behind the stove and said to Cheng Hao, get up and I'll burn it. Cheng Hao stood up and patted the dust on his body sheepishly, walked up to Chen Lian and said, how about I cook? Chen Lian looked at Cheng Hao, who had a few gray marks on his face, and couldn't help laughing and said, forget it, you should go and rest and wait to eat. I'm afraid you will waste my betrothal gift. Cheng Hao, I was indeed disliked. The dejected Cheng Hao pulled up a small bamboo stool and sat next to him. Watching Huo Jiankai skillfully lighting a pot with a cigarette butt, and Chen Lian pouring oil, adding vegetables, and stir-frying in a clear order, he felt like a waste in a firewood pile. But her attention was soon attracted by the aroma wafting from the pot. The aroma of bacon and garlic sprouts mixed together was so tempting. Soon a plate of bacon was out of the pot. Chen Lian filled the pot and said excitedly to Huo Jiankai, old Huo, get the wine. Huo Jiankai, who had just put out the fire, stood up and rubbed his hands and said, come on, it's not easy to taste your craftsmanship today. No, I don't usually cook for men. Chen Lian put the dishes on the small wooden table under the eaves, looked at Cheng Hao who was following him and said, sorry, I forgot about you, sit down and eat. Cheng Hao sniffed and said coquettishly, how about I go eat from the crew's big pot, and you just have one dish. Oh, by the way, you go to my room and bring some beef jerky and peanuts to serve as food and drinks. Oh. Cheng Hao ran away. Huo Jiankai came over and bumped Chen Lian with his shoulder and said, don't try to get her idea. Teacher Teng and her father are friends. Be careful that Teacher Teng will cause trouble for you. Chen Lian rolled his eyes at him speechlessly. Who did he think he was? He wasn't Teddy who couldn't walk when he saw a woman. Soon Cheng Hao came back, put the beef jerky and peanuts on a plate, and then sat down at the table naturally without saying anything about eating a big pot of rice. Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai looked at each other and smiled, then took a sip of wine from their glasses. At this time, light rain was already falling in the sky. Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai were drinking wine and watching the raindrops falling on the blue stone. They felt that such a leisurely life was really good. Rainy days are the best time to drink. Cheng Hao ate the bacon in small bites and looked at the wine in Chen Lian's cup. He stood up excitedly and ran to get a cup, put it in front of Chen Lian and said, give me a cup. You don't drink, don't you? Cheng Hao pinched his fingers and said, just a little bit, have a taste. Chen Lian smiled and poured her a glass and said, Urquatu is highly alcoholic, so drink it in small sips. Cheng Hao nodded as he smelled the aroma of the wine, took a sip from the cup, and his face suddenly wrinkled up. Chen Lian and Huo Jiankai burst into laughter. Sometimes the happiness of old men is so simple. Cheng Hao blushed and looked at the two people who were laughing at him. He pushed his cup in front of Chen Lian and said, I won't drink any more. Don't waste it if you don't drink it. Chen Lian took it and poured it into his own cup. He hummed and took a sip from the cup. The sky outside gradually darkened. After the meal, the three of them sat under the eaves with a cattail leaf fan and watched the rain outside, enjoying the brief tranquility. The rain stopped that night, and when it got dark the next day, the crew got busy. The mountain road was very slippery after it rained, but some scenes were ready to be filmed. Chen Lian got up early, looked at the misty mountains, stretched, messed up his hair, put on a gray t-shirt and went to film. The advantage of acting in this kind of film is that you don't need to put on makeup, unlike the previous Daming Palace, which required more than half an hour to put on makeup every day. In a small room, there was only one light on. Teng Rujun had a skinny figure. He stood in the room without saying a word. When Chen Lian came in, he just nodded. The mountain, that man, that dog is a very simple movie. The old father retired due to illness after working as a rural postman all his life, and his son who did not go to college inherited the job. One is a worried but taciturn father, and the other is a child who cannot express or communicate with his father. A journey of sending letters, a process of a father and son understanding each other. The two people don't even have names in the movie, just the two simplest and most straightforward identities. A son, a father, a typical Chinese father and son. Chen Lian wasn't sure whether he could play the role well. He had always been a father, and this was the first time he called someone his father. But thinking of Uncle Chi, Chen Lian felt that it was not difficult. Once he was a teacher, he was always a father. There will be another chapter later, and another chapter during the day tomorrow. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 432. Chapter 418-416. Father and Son. In the early morning, the dense woods are filled with clouds and mist, and it seems that the clouds and mist in the sky are also immersed in this beautiful mountain forest. The gurgling stream and the crisp sound of water bring people into a quiet and peaceful place. Smoke curled up from the small courtyard on the hillside, and the green smoke added a touch of human fireworks to this early morning. Chen Lian looked at the beautiful scenery and couldn't help but exclaimed, "The scenery is so beautiful." "You think so too?" Huo Jiankai said while chewing the cake. Many people in the crew were worried that the beautiful scenery would affect the expression of the theme and downplay the hardships of rural postal workers. Chen Lian said with a smile, "This is real rural life. Why has it been downplayed?" Although the 223-mile postal route is not completely difficult and dangerous, what is difficult is the persistence of decades and the dedication day after day. Huo Jian nodded and said, "That's right. Why do we have to follow conventional shooting techniques to be realistic? What we originally wanted to convey was the deep and warm emotion between father and son." After hearing this, Chen Lian couldn't help but give Huo Jiankai a thumbs up and said, "You really look like a great director now. This film is a good one. You will definitely win awards and be soft-hearted." "Haha, I'd like to lend you some good words." Huo Jiankai finished the cake in his hand, looked at the brighter sky and said, "The light is almost there, let's get started." Chen Lian hummed and turned around and walked into the room. In the dark room, the father opened a huge mail package again. He was worried about his son who was going to work on his first day. The son gnawed on the freshly cooked corn and watched his father sort out the mail package for him. In fact, he didn't trust himself. It was his first time on the postal route of more than 200 kilometers, and he didn't know if he could do it well. Facing his father, the son feels alienated and in awe. The father is out delivering letters all year round. The father and son spend little time seeing each other and communicating even less. Looking at his son who was sitting opposite him, his father sorted out the parcel and said, "A round trip of 223 miles takes up 3 days, with 2 nights in between. I know, you have come and come back, but I don't know yet." The son's words were a bit stubborn, as if he wanted to prove that he had grown up. The father didn't say anything concerned. He just turned around and took a map he drew and said to his son, "On the first day, today, I drew a map for you. You have to walk 80 miles up the mountain and climb over the sky Chiling to Wangfengkan, stay at Jubanlang, stay there early tomorrow morning." The son listened to his father's words and his past experiences, but still didn't take it to heart. He took the map and said, "If I walk more on the first day, I might be able to get back in 2 days. Fathers and sons in China always seem to be like this. One is taciturn and expresses his care in a blunt way, while the son always wants to prove that he is worse than his parents and feels that their experience is not as smart as his own. The father glanced at his son and said in a light but serious tone, "If you do it, it won't be 2 days a day, 3 times or 5 times." The son replied perfunctorily, "I know. I have retired, and you volunteered to take over." The son stood up and didn't pay attention to listen to his father's words. Instead, he looked at his father's old uniform in front of the mirror. He picked up the hat hanging on the shelf, put it on his head and looked at himself in the mirror. Suddenly, he felt a sense of inheritance falling on him. It's a hard job, and you might regret it before long. The son adjusted the hat on his head, not taking his father's words to heart at all. What he thought in his heart was that if you can do it, I can definitely do better. I can't wear your uniform. The branch director said that my size's uniform won't be available for a while. After hearing this, the mother who was making breakfast couldn't help but said, "Now you don't have to worry about food and clothing. What's wrong with being a farmer? Now that your father is back again, if you want to be a worker, go to the city." The mother knew how hard this job was, and felt a little sorry for her son's choice. The son's view was different from his mother's, and he said stubbornly, "Mom, you don't understand. The rural postman is a state cotter. My taking over is different from going to the city to work. There must be a state cotter in our family." The son looked at himself in the mirror wearing a hat, took off his hat and looked at his busy mother and said, "Mom, do you think so?" After saying that, the son hung up his hat, turned around and went in, not caring whether his mother understood or not. Click. After the scene ended, Huo Jiankai stopped it in time and couldn't help but rub his fingers and said, "The scene just now was really smooth. I have never filmed such a smooth scene." Chen Lian said with a smile, "Teachers Teng and teacher Zhao did a good job, and they immediately brought me into the role." "Lian, don't be humble, you're good at acting," Huo Jiankai said, stood up and walked to Teng Rujun and said, "Teacher Teng, the way you looked just now really reminded me of my dad. At that time, my dad does the same thing when he's working." "Parents in the world love each other," Teng Rujun said with a smile. Huo Jian nodded and said, "It's true. Let's take a short rest, change the camera position, and prepare for the next show." Chen Lian came out of the house and took a piece of cake to fill his stomach. He had only eaten corn and was still hungry. The second child in the yard looked at Chen Lian eagerly, waiting for him to feed him. Chen Lian looked at the eager Dick, broke off half of it and threw it into his mouth and said, "We will share the blessings and hardships in the future. Don't take me into the ditch later." Chen Lian rubbed his second son's head, and when he looked up, he saw Cheng Hao handing over a piece of cake. "Eat mine. You're so big, you won't be full from one piece of cake." Cheng Hao stuffed the cake into Chen Lian's hand and said with some admiration, "You are really good at acting, even better than Uncle Tang." "It's okay, there's still a little gap between me and the seniors," Chen Lian said while biting the pancake. Cheng Hao said with a smile, "Don't be humble, we are all movie kings." "What year doesn't have a best actor?" Chen Lian said nonchalantly. "There are many actors in China who have won Best Actor, not to mention that he only won a Golden Rooster Award for Best Actor. Without 4 or 5 movie stars, I would be embarrassed to go out and brag." Chen Lian and Cheng Hao chatted for a while, and Huo Jiankai told him to go filming. After putting the parcel on his back, Chen Lian waited and said, "It's so light, but there are so many clothes stuffed inside. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it if it's too heavy," Huo Jiankai explained. Chen Lian immediately took off the mail bag and said, "No, make it a little heavier. If it's too light, it will be more difficult to perform." Teng Rujun glanced at him and nodded. A heavier mail bag would indeed make the acting more realistic. If it was too light, he would have to make expressions and movements, which would make it unrealistic. Huo Jiankai looked at Chen Lian and said, "Okay, don't complain later. Almost all the subsequent scenes will be carried on your back." "It's okay, my strength is good," Chen Lian said nonchalantly. Someone in the crew couldn't help but laugh secretly. He must have good physical strength, otherwise how could he have so many girlfriends? Most people can't bear it. The props man held back his laughter and ran over to restuff Chen Lian's parcel, handed it into Chen Lian's hand and said, "Teacher Chen, can you try this weight?" Chen Lian tried it and said, "It's still too light. Add more weight." Prop looked at the mail bag in his hand and couldn't help but smacked his lips. It felt quite heavy, but seeing how easily Chen Lian picked it up, he still added some weight to it. Huo Jiankai said from the side, "Don't make it too heavy. It won't feel heavy when you carry it. If you carry it for a long time, you won't be able to bear it. It's not as heavy as a student's school bag." Chen Lian thought of Cece's school bag and felt that Cece's school bag was heavier than this. Lu Xiaoli prepared a lot of things for her every time, maybe because the poor students had more stationery. The props added weight to the postal bag, and after Chen Lian carried it on his back, he felt that it felt a little better. "I'm ready, Lao Huo, we can start." Huo Jiankai looked at the drop of the parcel and felt that it should be quite heavy. After the props came over, he asked in a low voice, "How much does it weigh?" 30 or 40, Prop said uncertainly. Huo Jian nodded and felt that it was okay, so he shouted with a loudspeaker, "Everything is ready, ready to start filming." The sky was overcast, it was still early morning, and the light was not bright. The son walked to the yard wearing a bamboo hat and carrying a heavy mail bag. His mother stuffed his bag with food in her hand. The son stopped and looked back at his father, as if waiting for him to say something. The father did not look at his son, but looked at the second child, who ran over, touched it and shouted, "Second child, go, go." The second child squatted beside his father and did not move. The son looked at his father and the second child, feeling a little disappointed in his heart, as if no one recognized him and believed in him. The father shouted a few more words to the second child, but the second child still squatted beside him and remained motionless. The father raised his head and glanced at his son with a gloomy expression. He stroked the second son's dog head and sat on the stone steps to explain patiently to his partner. "Second brother, I won't go up the mountain from today on. I'm retired and the branch director won't let me do it. Although I'm not very old now, my leg pain can't be cured." The son listened to his father's words and subconsciously looked away, as if he couldn't bear to see his mountain-like father saying that he was old. The father was still talking to the second child, and the son felt a little uncomfortable and shouted to the second child, "Second child, let's go." The second child seemed not to hear, but still squatted in front of his father. The father pushed the second child a few times, but the second child was unmoved. The son impatiently shouted to the second child, "Don't force me to pull the chain, you go." Seeing that the second child was unwilling to leave, the father stood up and turned around and entered the house. The mother saw what he meant and followed him in. The son in the yard looked at the second son and cursed helplessly, but a smile flashed across his lips. There was a person and a dog in the yard just staring at each other. The son was a little dumbfounded, and then he tried to save his face and said, "If you don't pull him down, I would be less worried without you." The son looked at the unmoved second son, raised his head and shouted towards the house, "I'm walking," then turned and walked out of the yard, the heavy and bulging mail parcel swaying behind him. In the yard, my father had already changed his clothes, took the bamboo hat from his mother, and walked outside with a stick that he used as a cane. My mother also walked a few steps quickly and left the yard first. Arriving outside the yard, the mother looked at her son's leaving figure and shouted, "Son, wait a minute, your dad will go with you." After hearing this, the son turned around, looked at his mother and shouted, "Mom, if you need anything, just ask Su Wan Chang, I've entrusted him with it." The son just told his mother that he was not surprised that his father would go with him. He did not say anything to ask him to go back, but just watched his mother call her to go back. It seems that this kind of ignorance can make him feel less embarrassed and accept his father with him with peace of mind. He is deeply afraid that after talking to his father, he can't help but try to get him to go back. On the muddy path, there were green wheat seedlings on both sides. On the narrow path, my father chased me with a stick. The two of them faced each other but neither looked at each other. They were shy and silent and could not express each other's thoughts. But on this path that his father had walked thousands of times, father and son finally walked together. Suddenly there was light rain in the sky. Chen Lian looked up, took off his mail bag, looked at Teng Rujun and said, "Teacher Teng, the road is slippery, so be careful." Teng Rujun raised the stick in his hand and said, "I'm leaning on the stick. Even if the filming of today's scene is completed, it's raining again, and the subsequent scenes cannot be filmed, so the crew can only rest. I don't know how long it will stop raining. When it rains, the air pressure in the mountains is very low. It's a bit stuffy but very cool." Chen Lian returned to his residence and sat on a small stool under the eaves. Watching his second brother walking around in the yard, he couldn't help shouting, "Second brother! Why didn't you follow me when I called you just now?" The second child stopped and glanced at Chen Lianyu, then continued to circle. Cheng Hao sat next to him and couldn't help but laugh. "Why are you still settling accounts with the dog? It can't understand you. This kind of dog is so smart." Chen Lian took out the peanuts and threw them into his mouth, turned to look at Cheng Hao and asked, "It's still early for your role, why are you here so early? The road is not smooth and it is not safe to be alone. It is better to come earlier to study," Cheng Hao said with a smile. Chen Lian hummed, looked at her and said, "If you don't go to Teacher Teng to study, you won't learn anything by sitting here with me." Cheng Hao looked embarrassed and blushed slightly. Fortunately, Huo Jiankai came back at this time and shouted in joy to relieve her as soon as he entered the yard. "What kind of addiction do you have? You only filmed a few scenes," Chen Lian said with a smile. Huo Jiankai chuckled and said, "The filming went well. You and Teacher Teng did a great job." Chen Lian shrugged and said, "They are powerful." Cheng Hao couldn't help but turn his head and look at Chen Lian. He didn't know why he was so immodest now. That's not what he told him just now. Okay, my best actor friend, let's have a full glass, and you can get some bacon." Huo Jiankai sat down and said, "I feel like I'm missing something if I don't drink some wine today." Chen Lian put down the peanuts in his hand and said, "It's true. I'll call Teacher Teng." "Hello Cheng, you go and borrow the bacon. Forget it, just buy it with some money. I don't know what I'll get back later." Cheng Hao said hello, and then thought about Chen Lian being favored by others. He couldn't help laughing and followed Chen Lian out. After leaving the yard, Chen Lian went to call Teng Rujun, while Cheng Hao ran to borrow bacon. The division of labor was very clear. Huo Jiankai, who was sitting in the yard, couldn't help but pat his legs and muttered, "They look like a couple. Let's start with one chapter. There will be another chapter before 12 o'clock. I have been busy revising the previous article today and really don't have time to write more." Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 433. Chapter 419-417. The sound of insects, frogs, and gurgles. The light rain in the mountains has been falling for several hours, and the trees in the yard are still dripping with raindrops. The crystal raindrops fall down and make a crisp sound when they fall on the wet stone slabs. Cheng Hao stood under the tree and caught a drop of rainwater with his palm. Feeling the coolness in his palm, he turned to look at the men who were still drinking. He took his hand back out of boredom and ran to play in the village. The second child was lying under the table, sticking out his tongue and waiting for the remaining bones. Chen Lian and Teng Rujun clinked glasses and took a sip of wine. They picked up a piece of fragrant pheasant meat and dropped it before they even reached their mouths. The second one caught the dick accurately, chewed it twice and then swallowed it. Chen Lian looked down at the second dick and couldn't help but rub its head hard. Teng Rujun ate peanuts and said with a smile, "We can continue filming when the weather clears and the road becomes easier to walk." "It's almost the same, but it depends on the weather." Huo Jiankai looked at Teng Rujun and said, "Teacher Teng, can you withstand the humidity in the mountains?" Teng Rujun rubbed his knees and said, "My legs hurt in the scene, but it's not real. I'm feeling fine." "You are in good health and better than me." Huo Jiankai patted his belly and said, "It means you have lost a little weight recently." "Then drink less," Chen Lian said and took away the wine in front of him. There was only a little bit left in the bottle. Chen Lian poured half a cup for Teng Rujun and poured the rest into his own cup. Huo Jiankai smacked his lips in envy and looked at his empty cup. He felt that he had lost all the fun in an instant. The peanuts were all tasteless without wine, and his mouth was dry after eating too much. After finishing the last 2 glasses of wine, Teng Rujun put the glass down and said, "I won't eat with you. When I get older, I feel like sleeping after drinking a little." "Then go back slowly," Chen Lian said with a smile. When Teng Rujun left, Cheng Hao came back. Chen Lian looked at her and shouted, "Put a bowl of rice for me and bring me some more rice cakes." Cheng Hao pouted and ran to serve the rice, serving Chen Lian a large bowl. Huo Jiankai looked at the fragrant rice and golden crispy rice in Chen Lian's bowl. He couldn't help but swallowed his saliva, turned to look at Cheng Hao and asked, "Where's mine?" "Director, you didn't say anything either." Cheng Hao looked at Huo Jiankai innocently. "Huo Jiankai, here you go, give me a bowl." Cheng Hao blinked at him innocently and said, "It's all here." Huo Jiankai, "Yes, let's eat peanuts." Chen Lian poured the braised pheasant soup onto the rice, smiled and said to Huo Jiankai, "Lao Huo, it's time to lose weight, watch me eat." Seeing Chen Lian's good appetite and good figure, Huo Jiankai chewed the peanuts with envy and hatred. On the small square table, Cheng Hao propped up his chin and watched Chen Lian eat with large mouthfuls. He felt that handsome men were so handsome when eating, and they were much prettier than those classmates in school. The only good-looking boys in her generation were Li Zonghan and Wu Yu, but they were far behind Chen Lian. Cheng Hao watched Chen Lian finish a bowl of rice and asked proactively, "Is it enough? If you're not full, I'll go next door and borrow some food for you." Chen Lian waved his hand to indicate no need. Huo Jiankai felt so damn boring sitting there. He had no food just now. Why didn't you ask him to get some food for him? These little girls are so superficial. Just look at the face. Don't you know how to take care of your old comrades? No respect for the old or the young at all. Huo Jiankai snorted, put down his chopsticks and left, even if he didn't want to eat this meal. Cheng Hao looked at Huo Jiankai's back, turned to Chen Lian and said, "Is the director angry?" Chen Lian couldn't help laughing, looked at Cheng Hao and said, "Aren't you very smart? Why don't you understand the world at all?" Cheng Hao said weakly, "He didn't say anything, and the food is just that little. You must be hungry after carrying such a heavy bag this morning." Chen Lian, "You are quite considerate, but you are a bit silly." Cheng Hao didn't think she was stupid. She still knew who to please in this crew. Who knew whether she did it on purpose just now? Never underestimate a woman. Chen Lian looked at Cheng Hao, pointed to the plates and bowls on the table and said, "How about you work harder and wash the dishes too?" Cheng Hao shook his head and said, "I can't wash so much by myself. You can wash it with me." Chen Lian looked at the 3 plates, 3 cups, and 1 bowl and was stunned for a moment. This girl is interesting. Isn't it just washing the dishes? Let's do it together. In the small stone trough, 2 hands washing dishes would inevitably touch each other. Cheng Hao pretended that nothing was wrong and washed the dishes normally, but the corners of Chen Lian's mouth would curl up slightly every time he touched her. Soon all the dishes were washed, and only the last bowl was left. As soon as Chen Lian picked up the bowl and prepared to wash it, Cheng Hao silently reached out to wash the dishes, holding his four hands together to wash one bowl. Chen Lian turned his head and glanced at Cheng Hao, whose ears were red, and couldn't help laughing. He put the bowl into her hand and said, "I like washing so much, so I'll wash it for you. One bowl can't fit four hands. It's a pity that the dishes have been washed." Chen was so embarrassed that he didn't even dare to raise his head, and silently lowered his head to wash the dishes. Chen Lian wiped his hands and turned around with a smile. He didn't plan to have anything happen to Cheng Hao on the set. Cheng Hao's elder Teng Rujun was still there, so he had to pay attention to the impact. Cheng Hao stood in the yard and looked at Chen Lian's back. He couldn't help but snorted and looked at the bowl in his hand that didn't look pleasing to the eye. "Who made you so young?" After returning to his room, Chen Lian leaned on the bed with a headache. There was no signal in the mountains, and the phone calls were intermittent. The days in the mountains are quite beautiful occasionally, but it really doesn't last long. I hope the sun will be better tomorrow and I can finish filming the scene as soon as possible. After a while, Cheng Hao popped his head in again, looked at Chen Lian and asked, "Teacher Chen, would you like some tea? I just made tea, which can relieve hangover." Chen Lian didn't expect that she would be persistent. He sat up and looked at her and said, "You should give your Uncle Teng a cup of tea first, so that he won't go back and tell your dad that you are ignorant." Cheng Hao was stunned for a moment, then suddenly understood, hesitantly said, "My dad will not interfere with me." Chen Lian raised his eyebrows slightly, looked at her with interest, and asked curiously, "You know what I'm talking about, right?" Cheng Hao blushed and nodded, looked at Chen Lian and said, "Teacher Chen, I like you very much. All the girls in our school like you. It's boring, why did you turn a corner?" "Thank you for your likes." Chen Lian lay back and said, "I won't drink tea anymore. I won't be able to sleep at night after drinking it." Cheng Hao pursed his lips and looked at Chen Lian, who was lying on the bed reading a book and ignoring him, and left in a depressed manner. After a while, Lao Huo came over, holding a cup of tea in his hand, and seeing that there was no tea in Chen Lian's room, he laughed and said, "Lian, you don't have any tea, haha, this little girl Cheng Hao is pretty good." Chen Lian rolled his eyes and said, "Childish. You have no tea? I don't like drinking. I can't get any tea I want." "Tch, you're so tough." Huo Jiankai took a sip of tea and turned around and left. Chen Lian really can't stand this guy. He should really let his wife come to the set and let him drink tea every day. Don't give him any wine. Chen Lian read for a while, then prepared to fetch water, take a bath and go to bed. Chen Lian was carrying a thermos and a towel on his shoulders. After taking a bath in the small room, he was about to go back to bed when he was stopped by Cheng Hao halfway. Looking at Cheng Hao, whose hair was still dripping with water just after taking a shower, Chen Lian still felt a little hot. Cheng Hao silently reached out and took the thermos from Chen Lian, looked at Chen Lian and said, "Teacher Chen, the mosquito net in my room is broken and there are mosquitoes. There are many mosquitoes in the mountains, so be careful at night." Chen Lian said and walked into the house, and Cheng Hao followed suit. "Teacher Chen, can I stay with you for one night?" "Minato, are you sure?" Cheng Hao's fair face quickly turned red, and he bit his lip and nodded. "Okay, my bed is small and I'm not a good sleeper. Don't bark at night. There are people living next door," Chen Lian said seriously. Cheng Hao's face turned redder, but he still nodded very seriously and said, "I promise not to scream. I'm not honest when I sleep. The relationship is good, but the two of them are dishonest. Let's see who calls out tonight." Chen Lian put the towel away and got on the bed. Cheng Hao looked at the small gap beside Chen Lian, sat on it with a blushing face, and carefully moved a little further in. Chen Lian looked at her hesitant look and said, "Come in, if you don't close the mosquito net, you will be bitten by mosquitoes." Cheng Hao hummed inconspicuously. Just as he was about to take off his shoes, he saw that the door was not closed, so he immediately ran over to close the door and lock the latch. After closing the door, most of the hesitation and shyness in Cheng Hao's heart disappeared. He lowered his head and trotted all the way to the bed, turning his back to Chen Lian and huddled in his arms. Chen Lian felt that the bath he had just taken was in vain. Why was it so hot that he felt like sweating? Cheng Hao blushed and closed his eyes and whispered, "Teacher Chen, please don't move, I'm afraid I'll make a sound." Chen Lian, who just said that he promised not to scream. The sky outside has completely darkened, and the entire village has fallen into silence, with only the sound of the gurgling stream, the chirping of insects and frogs. Oh, there are also the sounds of the wooden bed squeaking and the gurgling water. Early the next morning, before dawn, I got up early and ran back to my room. During breakfast in the morning, Chen Lian was eating corn when Huo Jiankai came over. It just rained last night and frogs croaked all night long. It was so noisy that I couldn't sleep well, Huo Jiankai said and yawned. Plug your ears with some cotton, Chen Lian said without changing his expression. Cheng Hao's face turned red. There was no frog chirping. It was obviously the sound of rocks falling in the stream and rushing water. Cheng Hao looked at Chen Lian, who had no expression on his face, and felt that his psychological quality was really strong. No wonder he was so powerful. After breakfast, Chen Lian looked up at the sky. The sun still had not risen, but the field attendant who ran to check the road conditions came back and said that the road was walkable. As long as you can walk, it's fine. There are many mountains and little mud here, but it won't have much impact if it rains all the time. Huo Jiankai immediately greeted, everyone starts working after eating. The morning in the mountains is full of mist, and the green mountains are hidden in the white clouds, which makes it feel like a fairyland on earth. Chen Lian, who was wearing a bamboo hat, picked up the mail bag, looked at Teng Rujun, who was holding a stick, and said, "Teacher Teng, please walk more carefully later." Teng Rujun smiled and said, "Don't worry, I climbed a lot of mountains when I was young." Chen Lian nodded, and after hearing Huo Jiankai's shout, he strode forward with the parcel on his back. He walked very fast and didn't know what to say to his father behind him. Chatting was never something that happened when father and son were together. Seeing his son walking swiftly in front of him, his father also had a smile on his face, as if he saw himself in his youth. The son walked very fast, but he often looked back to see if his father was following. On an uphill step, a villager happened to come down from the top. His son was carrying a huge mail bag, and he gave way unskillfully. The father waited for the villager to go down, then shouted from behind, "When you encounter someone, move to the right." The son looked back and shouted, "I know." After saying that, he put one leg on the rock on the right and tried his best to give way, proving to his father that he really knew how to give way. The father watched his somewhat stubborn son continue to climb the slope. He smiled on his thin face and followed step by step with a stick. However, his sick legs made it difficult for him to walk fast. The son walked forward in silence, looking back from time to time to see if his father was following. After walking forward for a while, the son turned around and didn't see his father's figure, and he suddenly became anxious. After hesitating for a moment, he put the parcel on the side of the road and ran back. When the son turned a corner, he saw his father coming out of the woods on the slope. It turned out that he had gone to relieve himself, and the son was relieved. However, when the father saw that the mail parcel on his son was missing, he immediately asked him where the parcel was. The son was about to speak when he heard an ouch. Chen Lian subconsciously turned his head and looked to the side and found that a staff member had fallen. This sudden accident caused the filming to be terminated. Chen Lian first went up the slope to help Teng Rujun down, and then went to the injured staff member and asked, "How are you? Are you okay?" "It's okay, I just twisted my foot." Huo Jiankai, who was helping to check the injury, stood up and looked at Chen Lian and said, "We'll reshoot this later, but the road is still too slippery. You must be careful when filming." Chen Lian nodded, squatted down and checked again. After confirming that he only sprained his foot, he said to the injured staff member, "It's not a big deal. Just go back to the village and apply some safflower oil and rest for 2 days." The staff member looked at Chen Lian apologetically and said, "Teacher Chen, I'm really sorry for delaying your filming. It doesn't matter, just take another photo. Be careful when walking on mountain roads in the future." Chen Lian patted him on the shoulder and gave him a few words. After such a delay, the scene just now had to be reshot. Huo Jian first emphasized the safety issue several times before restarting filming. Chen Lian and Teng Rujun were not affected at all, and they finished filming this section in one go. After the filming, Teng Rujun said with emotion, "We are just filming. It is very difficult to go away for such a long time. It is really not easy for those rural postmen to go away for a lifetime. Isn't this society supported by so many unknown and dedicated people?" Chen Lian looked at the beautiful mountains and sighed and said, "Who knew that in such a beautiful scenery, there are people who have been walking like this for a lifetime, and can remember their estimate is only those villagers who are waiting for letters." Looking at the mountains, Chen Lian suddenly thought of the high-rise buildings in the city. In those modern constructions, there were more unknown workers who contributed to them. Chen Lian suddenly wanted to create something to prove that someone remembered their efforts. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 434. Chapter 420-418. Ordinary yet great. On the misty and rainy mountain road, 2 figures, one tall and one short, walk silently on the road. A wolf dog suddenly poked its head out of the grass next to it, wagging its tail, and caught up with the 2 people in front of them. The photographer was following the 2 of them, and the crew was following behind them. 1/5 of the more than 200 miles of postal route has been traveled, and my son's pace has slowed down and he is no longer walking quickly ahead. The distance between father and son has become much closer, but the atmosphere is still so silent. The village at the foot of the mountain was the first stop on this postal route. On the way into the village, my father walked in front and his son followed. The son imagined that his father would be welcomed by everyone when he entered the village, but when he actually entered the village, everyone's reaction made the son a little disappointed. When his father meets acquaintances, he will introduce his son to them with a smile, saying that he will take over his duties from now on. The 2 came to the village committee house. It was very shabby and there was no one inside. The son sat under the eaves, and the father went in and carried out the teapot with ease. "Why is there no one?" The son's tone was a little disappointed, as if the treatment just now was very different from what he imagined. My father drank tea and said, "Who can wait here for you in broad daylight? We are not inspecting, and we have to be surrounded by people to welcome you. How long do we have to wait? As soon as the second one screams, they will know." The second child was drinking water from the wooden basin in the yard. After drinking, he ran to the gate and shouted a few times. The father and son fell into silence again. The son went to sort out the letters from the village. The father sat there and took out his smoking pot, filled it with tobacco and lit it familiarly, and started smoking himself. After a while, the secretary from the village came. When he saw his father, he said hello and went to wash his face. After he sat down, his father took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and handed him one. The son watched his father pass the cigarette to light the fire, and silently imitated the wisdom of the world. He also picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea and handed it over. The village secretary thanked him and started chatting with his father. The father told the village secretary that he was retired and introduced his son to the village secretary with a hint of pride in his tone. The village secretary smiled and said that his father should be the director. He felt a little sorry for his father's retirement. Some people lamented that in the village over the years, many teachers, doctors, and savers from outside have become model workers. Only my father, who has been away for so many years, is still just a rural postman. The son remained silent and didn't speak, but his view of his father changed a bit. The village secretary chatted with his father for a few words and then said that he was going to pick up the letter to be sent. Once again, only the father and son were left in the yard, and the second child was lying on the ground resting. The father stuffed tobacco leaves into the pot with a lonely expression, while the son looked up at the sky and remained silent. The son turned to look at his father rolling a cigarette, and couldn't help but take the initiative and said, "I'll give it a try." The father smiled and handed the pot over and said, "I didn't know yet that you could also smoke. You are often away from home, and I won't smoke when you come back." The son confessed his little secret to his father. The relationship between father and son seemed to have become much closer at this moment. The father asked the second child to come over and put his legs on the second child. He tapped his legs and told his son not to imitate him and always take shortcuts to get to cold water. "Who knew you were wading into the cold water?" The son felt that it was not worth it for his father, and he also knew in his heart that it was not easy for his father, so he handed the cigarette in his hand to his father. My father took the cigarette and was not in the mood to smoke it. He put it on the table and said, "I am the only one running this road. I can't go to the leader all day long to complain." The father sighed and talked about the reasons for his retirement. A month ago, the branch director accompanied his father on a mountain road trip. Halfway through, he couldn't bear it anymore. He explained that he understood the difficulties his father had endured for so many years and wanted to give him credit. However, promises and reality are often very different. The branch director walked half of the postal route and applied for early retirement for his father when he returned. The son didn't know what to say, so he just said dully, "Then the village and the countryside won't write you a letter of praise." "I wrote it, but I didn't let it be sent. How could I send a letter of praise to myself?" My father had his own self-esteem in his heart, and sighed and said, "Besides, who will praise them?" The son raised his head and looked at his father, feeling that the father he knew was very different from what he knew now. Suddenly, he felt that his father was like a hero who cared about the public. There was silence in the small courtyard for a while, and the father took the initiative to educate his son, not wanting to complain about his own suffering. The topic ended here. My father stood up and went to greet the village secretary. When the two came out, the yard was crowded with people, and they were both laughing at the father and son. The son was a little shy surrounded by so many people and asked his father why everyone was looking at him. The father smiled and said, "I came to see you. I don't know you." "Then what should I do?" "What should I do? Don't you want someone to welcome you?" It is rare for a father to joke with his son, but the son knows that these people are not here to see him, but to say goodbye to his retired father. The father was proud to introduce his son to the villagers. This was the path he had taken all his life, and now he handed it over to his son. Although the son was smiling, he felt a little sour in his heart. The same was true for his father, but he was more proud that his son had grown up. As the villagers bid farewell, the father and son set out on the road again. When they left the village, the father never looked back. The villagers sent them outside the village to watch them leave. The son couldn't help but look back a few times, but the father still walked forward silently. Although he didn't get credit or promotion, it didn't mean he didn't get anything. At least he got the respect and miss of the villagers. The sky was getting darker at this time. It had been cloudy for the past few days and the light was not very good. Huo Jiankai looked at the picture in the camera and ended today's shooting. Chen Lian took off his bag, as if he was taking off a burden. He is very rich and has a lot of status, but he can't deliver letters for decades. To a certain extent, these rural postmen are more respectable. It is they who convey the connection between the mountain village and the outside world. They are the only bridge between these villagers and the outside world. The rugged mountain roads cannot stop the responsibilities and expectations they carry. Chen Lian turned to look at Teng Rujun, suddenly envious that he could play such a role. At his age, there was no such deep role for him to play, and Chen Lian suddenly felt that being young was not all its benefits. "What are you thinking about?" So lost in thought, Cheng Hao came over from the side and handed him a bottle of water. Chen Lian took it and took a sip. When he drank it, he realized it was sugar water. After taking another sip, he asked, "Have you prepared it for Teacher Teng?" "Here, we're about to send it over." Cheng Hao shook the other kettle in his hand. Chen Lian smiled and nodded and said, "It's okay. I didn't forget Teacher Teng this time, otherwise I would have scolded you for being so heartless." Cheng Hao couldn't help shrinking his neck and said embarrassedly, "I forgot about it last time." "Okay, go quickly." "Uh-huh." Cheng Hao ran to Teng Rujun with a kettle, and Chen Lian took another sip of sugar water before feeling a little energetic. "The day was so hot and muggy that I sweated a lot after filming for such a long time while carrying a mail bag." Huo Jiankai came over and saw Chen Lian holding a kettle in his hand, and immediately said, "Give me a drink. It's so boring today. I'm sweating all over." Huo Jiankai took Chen Lian's water bottle and drank several sips before wiping his mouth and saying, "It's still sweet. Did Cheng Hao make it for you? Are you two getting along? Why didn't I notice?" Chen Lian snatched the kettle back and said, "Drink my water and stop gossiping." Huo Jiankai, drinkers are also short-tongued. After finishing his work and returning to the village, Chen Lian took a shower and made a phone call. The cell phone signal was poor, so he could only use a satellite phone. The cost was a bit extravagant, but Chen Lian didn't care about the 3 melons and 2 dates. Chen Lian made a phone call for half an hour before running to have dinner, but this time he didn't cook for himself. "I'm exhausted from filming. Who still has the mood to cook and eat? Just eat ready-made." Everything the crew eats is provided by the village, and they are paid on a per-head basis, so the food is pretty good. After all, the reality is not the 1980s in the movie. It's the turn of the millennium soon, and living standards have improved a lot. After finishing the meal, Chen Lian was sweating again. He put down his bowls and chopsticks and took his second son to go for a swim in the river. Cheng Hao also followed, and the dog, male, and female combination left the village and headed for the river. The river water was not very clean. Cheng Hao was a little disgusted, so Chen Lian had to let his second brother lead the way to the mountain behind the village. There is a mountain spring stream on the mountain behind the village, which flows all the way to the river at the foot of the mountain. The location of this creek is a little remote, and no one in the village uses the water from this creek. Every household has a pressure well. This place is very wet, and you can dig a well anywhere and you can get water. However, the creek was quite shallow and swimming was not practical. Chen Lian took off his t-shirt and lay down in the creek, and the creek was blocked. Cheng Hao sat on the stone and soaked his bare feet in the stream. The clear water flowed over the soles of his feet and felt a little itchy. The second child rolled around in the stream and started to shake his hair towards Chen Lian and Cheng Hao. "Dick! Get to the side and throw it away," Cheng Hao shouted, covering his face. The clothes on his body were soaked and clung to his body. Chen Lian laughed out loud at Cheng Hao's graceful figure, rubbed his dick's head and said, "What a good dog." The second child shouted at Chen Lian with bright eyes, as if asking for praise. "I'll add chicken drumsticks for you later." Chen Lian patted the second child's head and let it go to play next to it. Cheng Hao looked down at his half-wet clothes and grabbed the corners of his clothes to squeeze out the water. Chen Lian smiled evilly, picked up the water and poured it over. "What are you still twisting? Come down and wash it. Chen Lian grabbed Cheng Hao's white and tender ankle and gently pulled it into the water. Cheng Hao fell into the water. Looking at Chen Lian, who was smiling evilly, he also picked up the water and threw it back. Not to be outdone, Chen Lian threw it back. The two of them had a fuss, and Cheng Hao's clothes were completely soaked. Chen Lian grabbed Cheng Hao's hand and pulled her into his arms. Looking at her red face, he lowered his head and kissed her. The mountain stream suddenly became quiet, leaving only the sound of gurgling water. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 435. Chapter 421-419. I hope we will be the protagonists next time. The weather in the mountains has been bad these days, and Chen Lian even forgot that he hadn't seen the sunrise in several days. I wake up so early every day, and it feels like I haven't gotten up even if I can't see the sun. Chen Lian sat up from the bed, his pillow was empty, and Cheng Hao got up early in the morning and ran back to his room. It seems that the mosquito net in her room is not going to be repaired. Every night after everyone has rested, she goes to Chen Lian to sleep. There was a mosquito net and a warm embrace. The only bad thing was that every time Chen Lian hugged her from behind to sleep, he was not honest and she felt hot. While having breakfast, Huo Jiankai had serious dark circles under his eyes, and he hadn't slept well in the past few days. It wasn't that the frogs were chirping at night, but he was a little worried about the progress of the filming. I have been in the mountains for half a month, and I have taken less than 1/5 of the photos. I don't know when I will finish them. Huo Jiankai is not impatient, and there is nothing wrong with filming slowly, but if Chen Lian is invited to act, it is naturally impossible to accompany him for several months of filming. I have to work overtime today. I'll finish filming the scenes on the road first, and then shoot the rest of the memories and the scenes without you later, Huo Jiankai said while licking his rice noodles. Chen Lian nodded and had no objection. It was indeed impossible for him to keep filming here for several months. It would be best if the shooting could be completed in 1 month, which can also be regarded as some small benefits for investors. Director, will my part be filmed soon? Cheng Hao asked while chewing corn. Huo Jiankai thought for a moment and said, you are not in a hurry for your role. How is your dance practice going? Cheng Hao nodded and said, it's not bad. I've memorized all the moves, but I haven't practiced with teacher Chen yet. Huo Jiankai turned to look at Chen Lian and said, you go back and practice with Cheng Hao. Don't forget to finish filming other scenes and you haven't learned how to dance yet. I know, I'm a pretty good dancer, but I've never used a bamboo tube to dance. Chen Lian asked curiously, where are you going to find other dancers and reed players? Huo Jiankai took a sip of the soup and said, what are you looking for? There are a lot of them in the village. Ethnic minorities are versatile. Basically everyone can dance, unlike us Han people who can't do anything. Chen Lian laughed and said, we sat and watched. It's true. Huo Jiankai touched his chin and said, no wonder our ancestors are busy fighting all day long. Chen Lian smiled and patted his shoulder and said, let's forget it as a joke. Don't tell the people in the village, be careful of getting beaten. Huo Jiankai rolled his eyes and said, I'm not stupid. Okay, let's start filming, and try to finish it as soon as possible. Chen Lian handed the bowls and chopsticks to Chen Haju, who was next to him, and went to change clothes and prepare for filming. Huo Jiankai watched Cheng Hao carrying Chen Lian's dishes and chopsticks to wash them, then looked down at the dishes and chopsticks in his hand and couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Li, come here and help me wash the dishes. Huo Jiankai handed his bowl to his assistant and ran to start preparing it. The pace of this movie is very slow, and there is no thrilling plot. It is just a short story about one family in each village on the postal road. After leaving the first village, my father turned a corner and went to the fifth wife's house. The son didn't understand why he had to go alone, and he didn't understand why his father wanted to trick the blind fifth wife into sending a letter from his grandson. The fifth wife sits at the door of her house every day, looking forward to letters and the return of her grandson, but every time it is her father who comes, she happily welcomes his arrival and prepares a bone for her second son. The father's forged letter contained $10 and a blank piece of paper. The son stood in the yard and watched his father read a letter to his fifth wife, pretending that her grandson was saying hello to her and caring about her health. The father read half of the book and told the fifth wife that he had retired and that from now on it would be his son who would deliver the letter, asking the fifth wife to call him if anything happened. Looking at the blank letter in his hand, the father handed it to his son and asked him to continue reading. When the letter is handed over to the son, this responsibility is also handed over. This postal route is a bit of inheritance between father and son. The son read a letter to the fifth wife for the first time, and accidentally said the wrong thing. He said in the tone of a grandson that he wanted to take the fifth wife to take care of her in old age, but his father gave him a hard look. The fifth wife listened to her son's young voice as if she were hearing her grandson talking to her. She held her son's hand and didn't speak for a long time. The father and son left after reading the letter, leaving the fifth wife alone, sitting there lonely and looking into the distance, but her blind eyes could not see the light, only darkness. The fifth wife can't wait for her grandson. After leaving, the son heard what his father said about the fifth wife. Her grandson was admitted to a key university and left the mountain and never came back. Even after his father passed away, he never came back. The fifth mother-in-law cried her eyes out because she missed her grandson. After waiting for so many years, she never got her grandson back. She only got a greeting card and a money order every year during the Chinese New Year. The son was silent for a while and felt that his father was protecting his grandson. He should not have deceived his fifth wife, but should have written to the grandson. The father and son had a few quarrels. After all, the two generations still have different concepts of looking at problems and doing things. Most Chinese fathers and sons are like this, arguing silently and disagreeing with each other. Only when one party understands the other party can they understand and reconcile. There are several more scenes like this later, where the conflicts and cognitive differences between father and son are revealed in every little thing. The son can listen to the songs on the radio and sing along while walking, but the father cannot and cannot listen to songs. Seeing buses on the winding dirt roads in the mountains, my son thought he could figure out the bus routes and time patterns and save some distance. But the father thought it was opportunistic, thinking that the postal route was the postal route, and angrily turned off his son's radio. But as he continued on the postal route, traveled over mountains and rivers, and met different people and things, his son began to slowly understand his father. On the last night on the postal route, father and son slept in the same bed. They had never been so close to each other, and their hearts had never been so close to each other. After walking all the way, all the barriers and confusions disappeared on this last night. The postal route was very difficult, but the scenery along the way was very good. Chen Lian did not feel bored, but the scenery was enough to compensate for the hard work. Chen Lian has only one last scene left to film, which is the first night on the postal route. Someone is getting married in the village, and the date is specially set for the day when his father comes. This scene was a bit difficult for Chen Lian. He and Cheng Hao had to dance together around a bonfire at the wedding. The dance of the Dong people is very distinctive. They sing and dance around the bonfire, banging bamboo tubes. Chen Lian had just memorized the moves before but hadn't practiced them yet. Cheng Hao had already learned them during this period of time without filming, so he came to teach Chen Lian how to dance. In the yard, Chen Lian had a bamboo tube hanging on his body, imitating Cheng Hao's movements while jumping and tapping the bamboo tube. The two danced in perfect harmony accompanied by the crisp and rapid sound of the bamboo tube. The movement and stillness were extremely beautiful. Huo Jiankai, who had been watching the show, couldn't help but applaud. He turned to Teng Rujun and said, "Teacher Teng, they really look like a couple." Teng Rujun smiled and said nothing. To be a husband and wife, you must have the fate of being a husband and wife. Chen Lian is not a good match. However, this girl seemed to be obsessed with Cheng Hao. He was wondering whether he should persuade Cheng Hao to avoid getting himself covered in bruises in the end. In the yard, Chen Lian and Cheng Hao had finished practicing. Cheng Hao looked at the sweat beads on Chen Lian's forehead and took the initiative to wipe his sweat with his hand. He said with a bright smile, "Teacher Chen, you are really good at dancing. You can master it after just learning it a few times. I've been practicing for almost a month. Talent, and I have a foundation in dance." Chen Lian took off the bamboo tube on his body, turned to look at Huo Jiankai and said, "Can we film now? Shooting tomorrow." The decoration in the village began early the next day, completely in accordance with the wedding customs of the Dong people. Red lanterns, flowing water mats, Lushan band, and Dong ethnic costumes were all worn. Seeing such a lively scene, Chen Lian couldn't help but murmur to Huo Jiankai, "You said it's a pity that no one actually got married in so many scenes." Huo Jiankai chuckled and said, "Then you get married. You go to Cheng Hao to propose. I guarantee that you can get into the bridal chamber tonight." "Go away, I mean, no one in the village is getting married." "You can come together," Chen Lian said with regret, "it would be really exciting if there was a wedding." Huo Jiankai shrugged his shoulders and said, "Then no." But as soon as he finished speaking, a young man and woman came over led by the elders of the village. Chen Lian's eyes immediately lit up, feeling that something was about to happen. "Hello, director, I have something to discuss with you." The old man in Dong costume handed over 2 cigarettes with a smile and said, "There happens to be a junior in the village who is getting married. It was originally scheduled for next month. It's more difficult, now it's up to you." Before the old man finished speaking, Chen Lian immediately said, "No problem, let's get married tomorrow." "Will tomorrow be okay? It happens to be lively and lively. We don't have to rush the show." The 2 young couples who were about to get married looked at Chen Lian happily and said, "Is it really okay? We can help, or we can give you money." The young man scratched his head and said, "We just don't have much money." Chen Lian laughed and said, "What kind of money are you asking for? Just treat us to a few more drinks tonight." Huo Jiankai had lived in the village for so long, so he was naturally willing to give this face, and he agreed with a smile. After they left, Huo Jiankai looked at Chen Lian and said, "Lian, your mouth has been opened. This shows that our crew is lucky." "It's a good sign," Chen Lian said as he suddenly remembered something. He touched his pocket and looked at Huo Jiankai and said, "Do you have any cash on you? People are not allowed to give red envelopes when they get married." Huo Jiankai, "You, a big boss, ask me for money? What are you looking at? It's not normal for me not to have any money on me." Chen Lian smoked a cigarette and said in a pretentious manner, "Have you ever seen any rich man take money with him when he goes out?" Huo Jiankai said speechlessly, "I have only seen you, a rich man, so whatever you say will be yours. Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and get the red envelope from your wallet. It's at least 500 yuan, so you can be more happy." "Okay, anyway, the crew pays for it, and it's your money that's spent." The scene originally planned to be filmed in the evening has also been postponed and will wait until tomorrow. At night, Chen Lian sat in the yard and looked at the stars in the sky. It felt like it was a good sign. He had seen stars after coming here for so many days. Cheng Hao sat aside and chased away mosquitoes for Chen Lian. He grabbed the red envelope that was bitten on his arm and said, "Go in, there are too many mosquitoes. Okay, go to bed early tonight and help pick up the bride tomorrow." After the 2 returned to the house, they went to bed. Cheng Hao turned his back to Chen Lian, blushing and biting the quilt. The cooing sounds in the room mixed with the frog sounds outside were particularly beautiful. After an unknown amount of time, Cheng Hao let go of the quilt he was biting, panted with a red face, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said feebly, "Go take a shower." Chen Lian looked at the mosquito net that was gradually returning to calm and said, "Just wipe it. Isn't there water and towels in the room?" Chen really wanted to take a shower, but he didn't have the strength, so he had no choice but to say, "Okay, you can wipe it for me. I don't want to move." Chen Lian got up and wiped Cheng Hao's body, then wiped himself and went to bed. After a while in the darkness, Cheng Hao's voice was heard. "Teacher Chen, have you ever thought about getting married?" "No, why do you suddenly ask this? Do you want to get married?" "I'm just asking." "Oh, go to sleep, I'll get up early tomorrow." The room fell into silence again, except for the croaking of the frogs outside. Early the next morning, Chen Lian got up. He was going to pick up the bride. Chen Lian also specially borrowed dong costumes and sneaked into the procession to receive the bride. Huo Jiankai was not idle either. He took the photographer with him and acted as a wedding photographer. I don't know if the current wedding etiquette of the Dong people is any different from the past, but Chen Lian thinks it's still quite fun and lively. It's much more interesting than those weddings outside where people drive around, set off fireworks and eat dinner. The excitement was not over until the wedding in the evening. A huge bonfire was raised in the largest open space in the village. A dozen Dong guys played the lushan, and a dozen girls in Dong costumes danced around the bonfire. Chen Lian and Cheng Hao were surrounded in the middle, closest to the bonfire, dancing to the sound of music. The flames of the bonfire radiated waves of heat, just like the atmosphere tonight. On the periphery of the bonfire, the photographer took pictures conscientiously. Even though the banquet next to them was chatting with each other and the smell of meat was coming from the scene, he was not affected at all. Huo Jiankai and Teng Rujun sat together and drank with the old people in the village, not caring about the filming at all. In such an atmosphere tonight, no matter how the photographer takes pictures, there will be no problem, because everything is real. This scene itself has no lines. Everyone just needs to eat, drink and be happy. Chen Lian and Cheng Hao danced very happily, and the girls and boys of the Dong ethnic group also came on the stage to dance around them. There was no filming tonight, just a lively wedding. After dancing for a long time, Chen Lian pulled Cheng Hao down. If he didn't go down, he would be booed. Chen Lian took a sip of wine and said to Cheng Hao, "This is the happiest scene I have ever filmed." "Me too. I hope there will be a next time." Cheng Hao's pupils reflected Chen Lian's face and the beating bonfire, and he added silently in his heart, "Hopefully next time we will be the protagonists."